initiative to move, so I make it harder.
Michelin fights waste by developing tires made to last, so you can use them for longer.
World time has come to
Michelin, motion for life.
Two rounds done, 2 rounds to go left in the virtual revolution of IMSA. It started at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and it imploded in some ways at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. But today we preview the battle on the bricks as we say hello everyone and welcome back to the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship powered by VCO. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to have your company once again on RaceSpot TV, VCO Esports and on the iRacing Esports Network as we preview what IMSA is going to do once more in 2023. Race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm joined alongside by Lewis McLeod, as well as down on pit lane by Ewan O'Leary. And Lewis, it's been an exciting weekend of sim racing. A lot of these drivers coming off from the Le Mans Virtual Series yesterday, but they have to focus in the short championship as we get set ready to go racing once again.
Yeah, quite a lot of people going across from both championships. A lot of people just getting a lot of racing in over the weekend. That's normally where a lot of all this esports action happens. And everyone also delighted to be back after a week off. Can't wait to go racing at the Brickyard, such a legendary circuit. I've been against Rovals a fair few times, but this is one that's definitely towards the top of the list. It's going to be an exciting event. Let's at least go with that.
I think partly we're excited for this one because back in 2014, this track was reprofiled with the help of the drivers in the NTT IndyCar series. So it is very much a driver's track now rather than the slightly awkward layout than Formula One used to visit when they first came here back in the mid-2000s. And of course, what controversy they were able to stir up. Let's run you down through the schedule, though, where we've been, where we've still got left to go, because we've got a week off after this as well, but then it's the season finale back at the World Center of Racing. And Lewis, those first 2 races were electric. Maybe at Laguna Seca, a little bit stop and start with the 2 cautions that we had. But of course, with 2 driver pairings, 2-hour, 40-minute races and live race control, these races are anything but predictable.
No, they are wide open and exciting. Laguna Seca was really the staple of that. Like I said, it's the first time we saw the safety cars out in action. What will we see today around the Brickyard? It's not normally a circuit which invites too many larger incidents like what we saw at Laguna Seca. It's not a circuit which bites too hard if you make a mistake, but it's certainly one which invites some great racing. That race down towards the first corner, the run into turn 12 and into that 13 section as well as towards the end of the backstretch into turn 7. There's so many little opportunities for either a big send, a bit of slipstream, or maybe even just a touch of fuel saving. What we're going to see on that side today.
I was actually here twice in the last handful of months. I'm so excited to see what these cars do. Let's talk a little bit about standings. 2 classes, GTD and touring cars. And it's been perfect almost for the Apex Racing team. Maybe not in qualifying, but in terms of victories, Alejandro Sanchez and Kevin Ellis Jr. are running away. 2 wins on the bounce. Can they make it 3 in a row and keep up that 100% streak? Behind them, it's still relatively close for second on back. But the reality is, Lewis, Apex has got to come into some struggle for the rest to start catching up.
Well, when you have a season start the way they've had it start, basically unstoppable at some of that. But we know what these championships are like, especially when you're going through in the GTDs, you're going through those touring cars time and time and again. You're basically inviting risk for basically 2.5 hours. Obviously, the first 10 minutes you're all right, but then after that point, it is risky all the time. And we could absolutely see this door being opened up if anyone can just keep close throughout today, and obviously invite some drama in a couple of weeks.
Talk about touring cars then, and Honda versus Hyundai here. We have more manufacturers, of course, in the GTDs, but here it's been one apiece. R8G winning at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca after SimRC's victory in round number 1. A post-race penalty slightly hindered 176 as well, so the advantage has grown to 50 points. Semper Racing have been consistent, but I think the reality is, Lewis, the most impressive car and team in this class is R8G, the way that they've found speed in that Honda.
Yeah, it's not, particularly back in Road Atlanta, it was the car that we were looking at as being like, this is not going to be a great round for them, and yet still they wrestled out a fantastic second place finish, and then of course the win last time out at Laguna Seca. What are we expecting today? It is really kind of leaning towards that factor. It's probably going to be more of a Hyundai track, but yeah, I wouldn't rule out R8G from pulling something special out here. They really have got to the grips with that Civic really nicely.
So you see the team names here, but we wanted to explore the drivers a little bit more. If you caught round 1, you saw RaceSpot chatting with the drivers. Let's do that again, heading into round number 3.
So.
Let's just send it.
The difference between GT3 and TCR are going to be really big, and it's going to be extremely important to overtake the TCRs as fast as possible.
If you see someone pinch the 3 behind, 3 tenths behind and flashing his lights, it's better to let him go instead of forcing and block past him. So anticipate as much as you can.
I will let them to deal with me. I will be trying to actually lose as less as possible.
Planning ahead and focusing on the exit. Ideally, you don't have to slow down after getting on throttle.
There isn't trick or secret, only must think fast and decide who to waste the less time.
Stay on your racing line, to not be side by side in the middle of the corner, because you both will be losing time.
I expect there to be incidents. The key is just to let the others make the mistakes. Stay out of everything, be patient, and take advantage of the mistakes of the others.
Every situation is really unique, so it's not like you can have one strategy which will be perfect for every situation.
We usually discuss before the race in which corner should we wait or be a bit more aggressive to overtake.
If you're in a difficult corner, you pretty much have to lift a bit.
Stay calm in some kind of situations, but in others I need to be aggressive and try to win the most time that I can.
I'm used to LMP2 and GT3 traffic, but it will be a new challenge for me to share the track with the touring car. Normally we are the slowest car with the GT3 and the LMP2s are the fastest cars, but this time it's the other way around, but I think we will make the most out of it.
No, I can't.
No. No, not at all.
God, no.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I would sing, but I can't do it. My voice is too deep to make the high-pitched voice of a Lamborghini, so you won't get to hear that of me.
Meow.
Brum brum brum.
I should probably focus on the driving part.
Waking up as late as I can for the race and then trying to get some food and having a few laps before the event.
A glass of water with ginger, honey and lemon.
Pretty minimal warm-up for me. Try to get my mind in the right place for qualifying.
I really like to eat just plain spaghetti with some cheese before a race.
Practice at least 30 minutes before the race just to get warm up.
I just sit in my rig. I don't listen to any music. I just try to get into the zone, getting really focused, and also I can feel my heart rate go up, which is always an exciting feeling, but I think that's also a good feeling because you need that kind of tension before an important race to perform well.
Drinking lots and lots of water before going to the race and also going to the bathroom as well.
I drink a Red Bull and I listen to music to chill in the car before the start.
I listen when music from Marisa or Gente da Minha Terra. It's Fado, it's popular music here in Portugal, and it's that song that I always play just before to start the quali or the race.
I think listening to a banger just before getting into qualifying or whatever. Search up on iTunes the latest banger that I want to listen to and then vibe to it, and then we're good to go racing.
Always good to talk a little bit more with our drivers. However, We talked last week with Robbie Foley, a driver from the real world who has plenty of experience in the sim, and today we wanted to do something special and talk to a driver with experience in the IMSA paddock, but also behind the scenes here at RaceSpot. So we speak now with the veteran of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, Tyler Maxson, but a familiar face to those in the sim world who's worked behind the scenes at RaceSpot and at iRacing on the broadcast side of things. But Tyler, you are someone who actually joined into the sim world late relative to your motorsports career. You enjoyed a very successful run in karting before you transitioned over into cars. How much has iRacing helped you as you've gotten yourself up to speed?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I didn't even, I got iRacing at the end of my karting career and just kind of had a bit of fun with it. And I really didn't use it as a training tool about, I would say, a quarter to halfway through my first year of cars. But whenever I did, it made a huge difference. Just being able to go and get the laps and the reps at the track beforehand, having the reference points down before I even got there is just absolutely huge, and it's something that I've used up until now and have continued to do, and it just made such a difference in my preparation for each race.
Yeah, that's something you and I have talked about this year in particular with your step up to the LMP3 cars in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But iRacing in particular has been helpful for you as you've transitioned from front-wheel drive to downforce machines.
Yeah, exactly. I've been doing a lot of running in the LMP2 car, which is a slightly different car, but still the same characteristics of the aero wash and just how you have to drive those cars is very similar between the sim and the real car. So it has been a huge help, and I have just done so many races and so many laps in that car, just getting used to how I need to drive it, how the aero wash reacts, and it was such a big help going into my first race in that car, and just really helped me to hit the ground running and immediately get up to speed in it.
And of course, then it carried you forward to the Motul Petit Le Mans just a handful of weeks ago. Thanks for chatting with us now, Tyler. We'll talk with you during the race as well, but let's head back to our VCO pre-show. Tyler is a valued member of the team, has flown in this morning to be working on our highlights behind the scenes here for today's coverage. But we are delighted to enter this virtual revolution of IMSA Esports with the support of longtime partners at Michelin. Over the last couple of weeks, we chatted about how Michelin uses simulation and motorsports as part of their portfolio. Today, we wanted to explore why esports is so important to Michelin. So we've talked already about how motorsports and Michelin play together, as well as how simulation plays a role for Michelin. Today, we wanted to dive into the worlds of esports, and to do that, we talk to James Dimmock. And James, I mean, Michelin's got a deep relationship with sim racing, and it goes back not just with iRacing, but goes back even before the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such an interesting question, and the way that you frame that. We've been involved not just in esports but in gaming for a considerable amount of time, because obviously, you know, as a brand, we've been present as we are in real life through games. We all know as graphics have improved, as the ability to give more horsepower to the physics have improved, the experience has become realer, and we've carried on there as well. You know, we've tried to work with people and put ourselves out there in terms of not only to say that we're here and ready to talk tyres if people want to talk tyres, but also about trying to develop an effective way of talking to people, of saying to people, hey, we're Michelin, you know, this excites us as much as it excites you. So it's kind of super key for us, and also super cool for us to be able to get engaged through the entire gamut, through that gaming, through esports, through supporting various activations, including the one that we're here for now.
And the partnership, I think, isn't just about those collaborations, but Michelin became the first tire manufacturer to closely collaborate with Gran Turismo back in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, you know, we were very proud to work on. Obviously, you know, Gran Turismo is a world famous title. It's something that a lot of us might be our first sort of toe in the water in terms of digital motorsport, or it might just be that massive car culture that we've got going to get excited about. And working with Gran Turismo has been something that's been absolutely fantastic for us as a brand, and fantastic for me as an individual to get that opportunity. And for us, it's been about being able to work with Gran Turismo in terms of helping support in their game and their esport, and to try and find, you know, how we can bring in tyre strategy, because that's important to us, and we know how important it is in real life motorsport because it can make or break a race. So let's make that excitement part of digital motorsport as well.
It's why we talk about the Michelin keys to victory here in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. I kind of want to ask, though, what does the future look like with Michelin and esports? Of course, jumping in with IMSA as we dive into our virtual revolution. What more can sim racers and esports racers around the world have to look forward to from Michelin?
Wow, another great question. You know, I'd love to be able to tell you everything, but some things I just can't. But ultimately, you know, what we're here for, we want to support our real-life partners in their digital space. We want to support new digital partners, and we really want to get feedback from the community and support the community in terms of what they want. You know, we're here, we're ready to embrace it. We want to work with people to deliver something that brings value to them and shows them how engaged we are around all forms of motorsport, however it's done.
Great to have a quick chat with James here. We'll talk more with him during the race. Let's head back, though, to our VCO pre-show. We talked a little bit about this Roval at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, updated in 2014, but built within the last couple of decades. We wanted to check out a lap of this track. We jumped on board with the hardpoint by Delta Sport in 99 and their Joker driver for today, Sean Campbell, to run around the track.
Here we go. Lap of Indianapolis. Coming out of the second to last corner now. Gotta get on throttle early so I can start the lap. Sweep out of the final right-hander. Go to about middle of the track. That's pretty good. And so here we go. So coming across the start-finish line, you get plenty of time to contemplate the lap ahead of you. You're gonna brake between the 500 and the 400. Turn in for turn 1, kinda late, so you can set up for turn 2 to get on throttle pretty early. It's an important run. Sweep out to the left, right when that curb on the right disappears from my screen, I'm braking, and then getting on throttle as I come onto that curb. Through the chicane, hit a little bit of the curb on exit, and down the back straight. You're gonna sweep over to the right. Right when this first access road disappears over the top of the car, you're gonna brake. And just like turn 1, you're gonna turn in a little bit late so the exit not all the way to the right, so that you can set up for these right-left. Coming out of the left, you want to stick far left so that you can set up for the back straight run. Coming out of there, pretty good exit. And now you're waiting for a bump in the track. There's the bump. Now you're going to go straight a little bit so you can set up for a straight braking line coming into the third to last corner, which is, once again, just like turn 1. And then you stick far right for the second to last corner so you can get on throttle super early. And get a good run through the final corner, which is flat out. And that's a lap. I wonder what lap time it's going to be. Huh. There's a PB. What about that?
Oh, what about that indeed? Thank you, Sean Campbell, for running us around the lap. He is an accomplished sim racer. We've seen plenty of him here on RaceSpot TV. It's time to run you down through the starting grid here, though, for the battle on the bricks, the preview of what we're going to see in 2023. It will be Kevin Ellis Jr. at the front of the field, looking to make it 3 for 3. But it's an Apex Racing Team lockout. Jamie Fluke alongside 400, splitting them. Phil Denez running second in the championship will line up in third. Oscari Rene in the Ferrari alongside. They are coming strong here today. Daniel Pastor, Gianni Vecchio completing the front 3 rows. Then it's Maximilian Benecki in the BMW Team Redline BMW. Tristan Iglesias had a couple of nervy moments at Laguna Seca. He'll be hoping for a better, cleaner run today. Jamie Moon, Sean Campbell for Team 75 and Hardpoint by Delta Sport complete the top 10. Then the BMW for Kova and Antiohola alongside with Alexei Nesov and Mercedes-AMG Urano. Ryan Barneveld, the second time he's racing here at Indianapolis this weekend for BMW BS competition, along with the Ferrari for Aspar, Williams Esports Razor, MSI, Urano, Data Group, and Brabham through the top 18. And just a handful of cars left in this field with Arnage and the fire-breathing McLaren back in 19th, Alexander Davidson for Pure Sims in 20th, Door, Race Clutch, Altus, and Maniti, the 24 GTD cars, with Jersey Glack, Kuba, Kowalski, and then Dion Fiallo through the rest of the field. Quick look over the touring car field, Lewis McLeod.
Yeah, indeed. Quentin Gunes takes pole position for Sim RC. Apex Racing Team will start from second, with Julian Sullen taking third, and Arge competition alongside. A couple of Hyundais up there towards the front end. Honda struggling though to get into third, not too bad, as we've got Impulse Racing. We'll be talking about them in a few moments' time. Full Send Racing taking 6th position, with Naveed Hussain in that 6th spot. Scott Michaels for CrowdStrike with Pure Sims in 8th, rounding out the top 10. Martin van Loosnorden, the second one of those R8G Hondas, struggling a little bit for pace. Full Send Racing rounding out the top 10 with Pascal Sticks for Core Sim Racing and the Semper Racing car in 12th. And no, I am not going to try. Honda Racing HPD and Mirror Esports round out the grid. Surprised to see Gogo Baldi struggling that much, but still within a second of the pole time. I wasn't quite as brave as you are, Gina, but I did respect the attempt.
Raphael Joust, I think is how we're going to say it. Let's head down to pit lane for the first time today. Ewan O'Leary standing by with our Michelin keys to victory.
Yeah, good afternoon to you both. Good afternoon to everyone at home as well. The keys here, of course, very much different to what we saw in the first couple of races. Managed to change in conditions throughout the day. Traffic management still going to be as important, even though this circuit's a bit wide, a bit more open. You still need to manage the traffic and minimise the time on pit lane. It's a huge pit lane down here, to be honest. One of the longest we've got all season long. Minimise that as much as possible. You'll be right up towards the front. The strategy, though, in terms of how many tyres you're going to take, what you're going to do with your drivers, is going to remain largely similar to what we saw in the first two races.
Yeah, when we talk about changing conditions, Lewis, we're alluding to racing into the sunset, something that has been done in the real world here at Indianapolis for the very first time just a handful of weeks ago, and we'll be hopefully doing the same with IMSA in 2023.
Yeah, whilst you can see there at the bottom, the race starts at 5:20 in-game time. That means we'll be heading towards that sunset. It means the track will start to cool towards the end. It means that your tyre strategy could be thrown up into the air a little bit. The teams need to have practiced that, but the most important thing is getting through those first few laps cleanly. That race down towards the first corner is always a tricky one. v-c-o.info/live timing. I know it's not the easiest link. Timing71.org if you want to make it a little bit easier. Follow along with your favorite team and drivers. We're halfway through this season already, and in 2 weeks it will be over. Apex Racing are perfect at the front. Can Kevin Ellis Jr. make it 3 for 3 here as we get ready to battle on the bricks? In the touring cars, it's about SimRC and R8G going head-to-head for 2 hours and 40 minutes into the sunset at the racing capital of the world. The stands are filled with virtual spectators. The green flag gets ready to drop. It's Kevin Ellis Jr. that picks up the throttle and gets us racing at Indianapolis. Already Antiola in the BMW for Kova slides his way down the inside, but it's a heavy braking zone from 280 kilometers an hour down into the first corner. They all jockey for position. BS Turner trying to run for second, but slotting behind the Apex teammates for the time being. It's Kova trying to now challenge the Mercedes for Williams, but Lewis, here come the touring cars. Yeah, indeed. Just a very quick thing on that GTD category. Bad starts for Team Redline. We'll focus on these because they're 4 wide going into that first corner, because of course they are. There's contact as well being spun. I think that might have been Impulse just being sent off a little bit in the first corner. Chris Shorter being pushed down the order ever so slightly. Apex Racing Team taking over second position from RAG, hanging on, but look at the lead that SimRC have.
Yeah, SimRC have taken advantage of it, not truly broken out of draft. Look how much of the curve that they use there as well through that flick chicane. Gone are those switchback hairpins that have tormented so many. Impulse already, by the way, would have had a 10-second stop and hold penalty for a late replacement driver, so they already would have been dropping back. The Lamborghini for IMSA Esports, the one now going very slow and trying to maintain some track position. Surely, though, that was a slowdown penalty. They still bleed the time. Front of the field, Apex, BS Turner in the GTD field as we'll come across the Yarder bricks to complete lap number 1 at IMS, Lewis.
Yeah, also coming back towards Team Redline. So I alluded to one of the Team Redline cars. It was the 70, not the BMW Team Redline. It was the one that was being driven by Gianni Vecchio, that blue one that you can see in the background of shot. They started in 6th. They are running in 18th position. There was a bit of a connection issue, I think, on the race down towards the line. Dropped them right the way down the back end of the order. Now have to work their way up. We can see Arnage trying to battle out one of the Urano Esports cars, and there is Gianni Vecchio also trying to make his way past.
Yeah, I'm curious what happens. Starts have been a contentious topic through the course of this season, just through the chaos that we have had. Hopefully get a look at the replay and see what happens. Side-by-side throw through that fast chicane does not always work out. It's Vecchio that goes on the offense, and for the first time, Vecchio partnered with Luke Bennett in that car after we had Diogo Pinto last time out and Josh Thompson the previous time. Bit of contact, though, between the two of them as they battle. It will be Vecchio that slides back into line, but you can tell this race is not going the way he would have wanted.
Yeah, they've already, like I said, they've already had that bad start, but they need to keep their mentality on. It is a circuit that you can overtake at. You've got that Brabham Esports car directly behind James Armstrong, who's actually been really impressive on pace. New teammate for this round, though, so something new for him to get used to. Of course, losing out on the standard parts because Yanis Olbert will be behind the wheel rather than Hunter McDaniel. But Gianni Vecchio, there's a few driver swaps and whatnot. I'm not sure what I do if I'm Gianni Vecchio now. Do you just kind of think, right, okay, it's gone badly, let's just fuel save?
Oh, here we go. Impulse. So touring car start, like you said, 4 wide. I think we see the 3 wide, and it's just turning in. Arnage is there. But You love yourself a little bit of front-wheel drive, Lewis. Boot the throttle in and you're pointed back in the right direction.
Well, that's why, because in scenarios like that, you can really just go for it. Gianni Vecchio looking straight down the inside, trying to make up that spot, doesn't do so. Yeah, that's why I love a bit of the touring car action. I'm like, it's like, I'm 90 degrees to the corner. What do? Slam the throttle down. That's not what Gianni Vecchio is going to do. Back down the inside, trying to make up that spot on Urano. They're going to go side by side. The chicane again, up and over the curb quite a large amount. Is that going to be a slowdown penalty? It's definitely going to be an instant point for cutting the track.
Well, let's head down to pit lane to Ewan O'Leary for the first time in this race. We're not even 5 minutes complete, and Gianni Vecchio saying on the radio, the race may already be done. There's more contact, 2 seconds, Ewan. Vecchio goes around and now has to wait for the GTDs to throw themselves on past Lewis.
Wow, that is, just bad to worse for Gianni Vecchio, where it couldn't have got much worse. Well, it found another way, right down to the back of those GTDs. And like I said, this is going to be a very, very long day for Gianni Vecchio. 27th position, meanwhile, Williams Esports Razor and BS Competition going side by side to try and get themselves inside the top 10. Carl Jansen straight around the outside of the penultimate. Lovely move.
Yeah, a bit of contact, though, after the fact as Ryan Barneveld then got a little bit of a shove. Let's head back down to Ewan O'Leary now and hope that they don't continue to brawl into turn 1. But anger, I think, on both sides for what was happening there between Redline and Urano, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even before that spin, as you were mentioning there was a feeling, especially for Gianni Vecchio there, that the damage was already done there. He was already losing a lot of time and already getting quite far behind the Apex Racing Team cars already. And there's going to be that feeling amongst a lot of these guys around, those guys at the bottom end of the standings. Lorenzo also been looking around and listening into Urano. Nicholas Laubitz not happy with Gianni Vecchio, and that feeling returned the other way round as well.
Here we go, we'll look at the replay, and Vecchio just tries to send it deep, and you don't get the best look from there, to be honest, because we're from the right side of the cars, but first indications, maybe Gianni tries to clear himself.
Gina, this is someone who is a producer here at RaceSpot, completely throwing Hugo Luis, our broadcast director, straight under the bus. Nice one. Terrible angle, apparently. No, you're absolutely right. It's a hard one to tell. Sorry, Hugo. Love you, man. It's a tricky one to tell from that angle. I'm not really sure, but it does kind of have that whiff of maybe Gianni Vecchio was turning across. Either way, Full Send Racing and Martin van Loosenoord trying to get around the outside in that R8G Honda battle here, a bit further down in the touring car category.
Yeah, and this is where really it's a sea of Hondas, at least for the time being. You got behind them Mirror Esports and Hyundai, but it is 3 Hondas ensconced together. Top 4 starting to maybe separate themselves away from this battle pack as we watch these touring cars uninterrupted by GTDs, at least momentarily. Once it happens and once it starts, it will be constant. Pearson's looking down the inside, though, as Naveed Hussein continues to have to defend, but again, a bit of contact and front-wheel drive. He puts it back into the right direction.
Yeah, Stolzenberg getting just into the side, obviously driving that Pure Sims car, and look at this, already trying to come through also on the on that Full Send Motorsports car was Gergo Baldi for Mirror Esports. That I'm really surprised to see Pure Sims just literally making that move and then making a mistake instantly. So, classic on that one. Got to say, big shout out on all of this from Martin van Loosenoord to march his way up the order. And yeah, let's take a look here. Oh, okay.
So, is Urano going to hit the apex without the contact? That is the question to really ask here.
I mean, it's a tricky one. Again, like, this is the ones where we could look at it 100 times from that angle, come to a complete decision, see it from a slightly different angle, and then go completely against it. It's one of those ones where race control need to see it from a lot of angles to really decide what's going on, and I ain't in race control, so yeah, we'll just sit back and go, wow, that was a bit rough, wasn't it?
It's why we're glad that we're not in race control, but it's also why race control is glad they've got plenty of tools. You can bang doors, and now Gergo Baldi continues to fight his way forward. 7 positions gained since the start of this race. Now slides in front of Full Send Racing. Semper and Rafael Joust trying to follow through as well. At the front of the field, it is Hyundai, Honda as it runs right now. It is so easy to say, isn't it? There was a bit of a feeling that the Honda Civic might be at a slight disadvantage over the course of the stint. However, they have slightly more fuel to make up for the fact that they're a little bit thirstier, and R8G, I think, are still somewhat optimistic about what their chances are, especially in a series with safety cars. We ride on board with Rafael Joust. Hugo is trying to now get back at me by making me say this name as many times as possible. I would just say at the front of the field, though, I mean, think back to the previous 2 races that we've had in the GTDs. Lewis, where Apex have waltzed away from the field. They're not being allowed to do so this time around, as here comes CrowdStrike down the inside.
Yeah, going to be a bit of a move coming down into 12, but Joust just managing to hang on to that final spot inside the top 10. You're absolutely right, though, focusing on that GTD category. As much as Apex Racing did, they're running first and second. They aren't pulling away right now, but I will remember back to Laguna Seca. I don't think they pulled away too dramatically in the opening phases, but as soon as we got towards that 30-40 minute mark into the race, boom, they absolutely destroyed the rest of the field. And look at all of this. Wow, this isn't even going through traffic. This is just them fighting over each other.
Now, is that Aspar Ferrari damaged? Because he is very squirrely. I was impressed to see Kova get their Ferrari up into the top 5 in qualifying. Oscari Rene still runs there. They run with a slight power cut in the BOP for this race. Ferrari's never really been at the front of the field, but the prancing horse very much in the fight. Now, can Aspar stop the bleeding and start working forward? It's Manu Rayo Largo trying to get down the inside as deep onto the brakes as they can go. Somehow they don't run into the back of the Altus Lamborghini. Still having to fight side by side comes the Nicholas Laubish Urano Data Group car, who's going to get bullied all the way to the grass.
Yeah, it's getting a bit tight, a bit testy between this. We know there's going to be a bit of side-by-side coming up towards the chicane. What's going to happen here? Space is given. Olargo goes straight over that curve. He's going to lose a couple of positions here, potentially. Brad Marnage, and to be fair, pretty much everyone else behind might well come through. It's going to be a 3 wide coming down the end of the
we got traffic coming.
As well coming. Oh my goodness, this is dicey action.
You can see just at the very outskirts of the shot, traffic of this lap for your race leaders as they work through the tail end of the touring car. Still Aspar, seeing what a frenetic opening 10 minutes of the race that this is going to be. Remember, caution free in round 1. 2 cautions, though, last time out on the best coast of the USA. Jump on board with Daniel Antunes, the replacement driver in the Maniti Racing 78, as the fire-breathing McLaren looks down the inside, and now Aspar continues to bleed spots.
Yeah, that might have been a bit naughty from the Triton car. Just in quite deep, locking up the ridge. You kind of see it was just sliding around before it hit the apex. The thing is that corner's so tight coming into turn 12. You're kind of, as much as it looks like a great overtaking opportunity, it's, I don't know how you found it, I almost think it's a bit tight to really send one down the inside. There's not a long braking zone for it.
In general, these corners are actually quite tight. Heavy braking zone at turn 1, the heaviest of them all around the outside. Lamborghini will maintain position, but officially 10 minutes into this race, I did get word in the MSI Porsche that they were a little bit frustrated with being pushed wide by Kova. However, it was in Spanish, so our pit crew team are struggling to understand. Tempers may be flaring and the natural languages of the drivers coming to the forefront, but this first pass through traffic, we always say it is the craziest because you're the most punched up.
Yeah, there was a switch position in the touring car category because Stolzenberg's just got through in that Pure Sims car on Martin van Loosnol, who just said before did a great job to rise up to 6th spot. So's Gogo Bowden. There's been an issue that I've just seen. I think Full Send Racing in one of the Full Send Racing cars, potentially it might have been in the touring car category. He's just been sent halfway around. You can see one out wide as well. Not sure who that is, but there's been some issues from those touring cars. Might not have been Full Send, so it might have just been going a bit old on that.
Well, it's so crazy right now. Well, they're perfect. It is a Full Send Racing livery that we see Team 75 trying to work through the S's. CrowdStrike in their touring car coming through, and then Urano taking it 3 wide. And it's really CrowdStrike that gets the worst of it, to be honest.
Yeah, there might be a bit too much damage. There might actually be like quite a bit of damage. There's MSI into the pit lane. Speaking of damage,
that's
Salva
big
Talents.
damage.
Well, I mean, this might explain some of the effing and jeffing in Spanish. He's not going to be happy with that one.
Yeah, that's a crab walking car, yeah. Fortunately, he's brought it back to pit lane. No danger of a safety car for that one. Hopefully, we can figure out exactly what happened to that. Still, a little bit of fighting going on through the field. I see 5th in touring car is R8G and Pure Sims battling in their 2 Hondas. It is now a Hyundai 1, 2, and 3 in that category as well. This traffic is very much played out for them. I think R8G in that 188 very much being bullied in this traffic phase of the race. Let's head down to Ewan O'Leary and see Ewan exactly what craziness you've been able to catch up with through this opening 13 minutes of the race.
Well, yeah, there has been quite a lot going on. We have got word, or more word, I should say, confirmation of the damage for MSI. He just saw crabbing into pit lane. Could probably work it out yourselves. Some big rear left suspension damage for them, so they'll be in the pit lane for quite a while. Other than that, though, it's been one of the cleanest starts this season. That's a bit of a clue as to how they managed to get the suspension damage. But as I said, a bit of a cleaner start. We have seen Impulse Racing from TCR also in. We expected that, though. That's for their stop and hold penalty. They had to change driver due to an internet issue for their original driver, one of the original drivers, so they had to change it, and so they pitted earlier on there, quite a long way back already.
Thanks, Ewan O'Leary working alongside with Lorenzo Bonder. I see Triton Racing, by the way, have gone off the track. I did see that Ewan O'Leary was pointing out that Triton thing. It's almost like sometimes teams have to just hang back a little bit. Your thoughts, though, on that little bit of contact that we had, though, that saw the MSI car get the damage off Kova?
A little bit of a hard one, once again, to have picked apart. There was side by side. The thing is with the first corner is that you almost expect, when you're down the inside of the car, you almost expect them to run. There's a little bit extra tarmac over on the left-hand side of the exit, which you almost expect that car on the outside to use. They don't really have to. It just is what it is. Yeah, I don't know how that one, again, race control will be busy.
This is quite scary, I'm going to be honest. We've talked about how the speed difference between the GTDs and touring cars might be actually scarier than LMP2 and GTDs. However, I don't think we've seen that really play out until this track, because the speeds are just so much higher down some of these straights compared to where we've been. And now it makes me think about what Daytona's going to be like, because that's a season finale. We're not talking double points or anything like that, but it's just everything will be on the line, and with no drop rounds, you can't afford a mistake in a 4-round championship.
Oh no, it's going to be totally terrifying, but at least for us here in the commentary booth, and for everyone watching at home, it's going to be banter. It's going to be a lot of fun. We all kind of expect that from Daytona, but I mean, this has been absolutely crazy through the opening one. I just said again on the screen that I think Triton pushing a little bit too hard have been off again. I think the contact between it was contact between Jerzy Glack and Eric Andre in the race clutch car was what sent them off, what we were talking about. That's why Triton have had issues.
Here we go.
Speaking of which,
that seems to be the trouble spot, and he's lucky that he does not get absolutely T-boned. No, I based on the fact that he hadn't come down pit lane, I was confident that he hadn't got T-boned, but I can see Lewis McLean's face right now, and I don't think I've ever seen him so terrified in the 2 and a bit years that we've known each other.
Well, I did just spend yesterday watching a 2-time Formula 1 world champion rejoin the track poorly, so good to see Triton not do so on that occasion. A bit of a switch of position as Gergo Bowdy was sent right off at T1, trying to get around the outside of one of the full send racing cars, so that will not be ideal.
He Ross Chastained, but not intentionally this time around. Remember, fuel window for these cars is nigh on an hour, minimum drive time about 45 minutes. With the threat of the safety car, we've often postulated that maybe you want to come in as early as possible once your first driver has done minimum drive time, get tires changed, get your driver changed as well, and then put that driver out to the rest of the race on the set of Michelin tires that they are on. And I think that's especially pertinent here today, Lewis, given that we're racing into sunset, given the cool track conditions.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of, to be fair, all the teams should have thought about strategy a lot by this point, and they will. It's not as if it's a shock to them that it's like, oh, what, we're racing into the sunset, are we? Oh, right. It's not a shock to them. They know what's going on. They will have played the strategy. They will have tried to have worked out roughly what the conditions are going to do as close as possible, which means they already kind of know what strategy they're going to be running. We've seen this before, though, is that every single time you do that and you go into the race, it's completely different when you get there. So you tend to throw all of your strategies straight into the bin. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing on tyres. It's not a particularly high tyre wear circuit around here at Indianapolis, so I don't know on that one, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. It's the drama, isn't it?
We love ourselves a little bit of drama running on board with Oscar Irene. I mentioned that the Ferrari has maybe not been the fastest over the season so far, but I think they were feeling a little bit more confident heading into this round and into Daytona in particular. And while, yes, they are 5 seconds off your race leader, I think still looking good for a fight for the podium. You mentioned this at the start, that we hadn't seen maybe at Laguna Seca, Kevin Ellis Jr., Alejandro Sanchez running away early doors, but give them 20 minutes, give them a pass through in traffic. Kevin Ellis Jr. has broken the draft to his teammate Jamie Fluke, who's now got Phil Denez in his rearview mirrors. That's not a sight I'd want, especially with Denez in that BMW M4 GT3.
Yeah, that's called being a professional, Arjuna. I pay attention sometimes, not really. But obviously, yes, the Apex Racing team, I mean, when you're the first car going through traffic, there is it's more risky because you're the first one getting to them. You're almost like the one waking up the lap traffic. But by the way, a load of GTDs are about to come through. but also you're the one that gets to pick and choose a little bit clearer as to what you can do. When you're in that middle of the pack, when you've got someone to worry about behind, someone to worry about in front, your kind of decision making through traffic is backed on what someone else is doing around you. When you're kind of sat at the front and you can make decisions, especially when it's your teammate directly behind, and you know they're not going to go for a massive lunge, you know they're not going to do anything too risky, you can pick and choose how to get through, and it's exactly what Kevin Ellis Jr. has done to be honest, to perfection thus far. 2.6 seconds clear after under 20 minutes of racing, and starting to pull out a little bit more through from his teammate. Whilst there's clean air, I don't suspect that gap will change really at all until they reach the next set of lap traffic, at which point it might go up, it might go down. That's the joy of endurance racing.
Yeah, let's see if we can throw up that track map so you can see at some point where the drivers are relative on the track. Get a good sense of that one as we waltz past those first 20 minutes of the race. Head back down to Ewan O'Leary and check in with T3 and the strength of the Lamborghini relative to the McLaren.
Well, yeah, we were just watching a little bit of a battle down in the midfield between the likes of Brabham Esports and Arnage Esports as well. Arnage Competition, who were trying to get through on the likes of Autos Esports and the Lamborghini. A couple of strengths and weaknesses starting to be noticed down here, particularly down at turn 3 and 4. But far more noticeable in this pack when I've been listening in is just how much calmer everyone is in traffic here today compared to Road Atlanta and Laguna Seca. I feel like that's a reflection of the circuit we're at here today rather than the first couple of rounds. It's a bit more wide open, a little bit more space to manoeuvre around here than they were at the first couple of rounds, and that's been particularly noticeable as I've been listening in through that first run of traffic. It was almost inconsequential really to these first 20 minutes or so, that traffic, whereas it was race defining, especially at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, I think the thing that defined that race at Road Atlanta as well was just the fact that it went caution-free. So many of the teams were heading into the unknown when it came to how that would impact the race, and so for it to play out as basically a 2-hour and 40-minute sprint, maybe not entirely as expected. Brabham, great to see them back, of course, with these green and gold colors into IMSA competition, and you were talking about a 2-time Formula 1 champion rejoining poorly yesterday, Lewis, but you did get the pleasure of commentating on this Brabham team, in Le Mans Virtual yesterday.
Yeah, and nice that you bring them up because it didn't have a good round in that either.
Oh boy,
they had a bit of a struggle. Let's be honest, it didn't go ideal. But focusing on in this championship, we're seeing a brand which is expanding its horizons in the world of sim racing, trying to take part in basically as much as they can. In this championship, actually looked pretty good. Last round just missed out on being inside the top 10. The first round of the season, they had some drama pretty late on. Unfortunately, retired from the race. But last round, they were looking like they were inside the top 10 for quite a lot. They took that risk late on with one of the cautions and whatnot, kind of left into a little bit of a struggle with the fuel and tyre strategy, which, by the way, was just very exciting. But alas, it didn't work out too well for them. But they're here again. 16th isn't where they feel they would want to be. I mean, they're aiming, obviously, for a top 10.
And I do like that, there's a track map, I think, behind him, so he gets 8 points for that. Brabham gets points for making sure that Armstrong is wearing the team shirt as well. Lewis and myself will share our addresses if you do want to send us t-shirts. We're always looking for new t-shirts to find. Yeah, to right indeed, right? So left side, by the way, you can check out the manufacturers in each of the classes. Remember, equal splits. In touring car, we have 7 Hondas and 7 Hyundais, while in your GTD class, we have 5 representatives of each of the 6 manufacturers. Apex Racing running 1 and 2 in the Porsches, BS Turner in 3rd in the BMW M4. And here's a bit of a battle. Urano, the Data Group 91 car, alongside with Kova's BMW that qualified down the field, may be out of position and is still yet to find its race feet. But Antiohola fends off the challenge, at least for the time being, from Nicholas Laubish. And here comes Tristan Iglesias right behind in the Lamborghini.
Yeah, literally sat there in that watching all this unfold. And then those two that we were kind of talking about being the Arnage and Brabham cars not too far behind once again. Kova taking the defensive line, late move from Laubish to get to the inside with a proper send coming down there into T7. We ride on board with Iglesias at the moment. You could kind of see that was a big send. It didn't work, but Kova's feeling the pressure. They are not looking fast in that BMW M4 at the moment. A lot of curb taken on the exit on the run round to T12 out of 10. I don't know if that counts as a corner going through there, the right hand. I'm assuming it does, probably. We are in America after all. A slight kink as a corner. There is the move back to the inside from Laubish, and that is the move done. That looked like it was an important one. You can see a bit of damage on the rear end of that M4.
Do remember, if you're watching on our VCO Twitch channel, you can enable Command Center and take control of your viewing experience. Watch along with the race feed, but also with Jamie Fluke, Kevin Ellis Jr., Yannick Lapchan, Bruno Spengler, or Impulse and the touring car entries. Multi-view your viewing experience only on the VCO Twitch. Tristan Iglesias not going to be able to get past the Urano Mercedes. However, with that COVID BMW struggling too much, I think it's fair to say, Lewis, it's not like the BMW was slow. Remember, you got BS Turner up in third with that machine, and Beneke and BMW Team Redline, they're also running in 7th spot.
Well, you can see the rear wing on the left-hand side of it, looking at now, right-hand side of it is bent down just ever slightly, because carbon fibre definitely bends. That's legit, apparently. It's fine. Obviously, there is... Whilst that rear wing's probably not going to be causing problems, there is definite rear end damage as Bad Esports get down the inside. There's a move from Armstrong trying to get it done on Arnage, but shouldn't really work because you're on the outside line coming through this S section. But yeah, Cova definitely have damage on that car, which is why that M4 at the very least is pretty slow.
Let's bring in Salva Talons of the MSI Esports crew. Our first retirement of this round 3 of the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. And Salva, I mean, what a crazy, hectic opening couple of laps to the race, and just talk us through what happened with you that got the damage on that 14.
Yeah, I tried to overtake Antti on that corner for trying to prepare the straight, and yeah, I had a little bit of understeer because I clipped the curb on the inside. Then I tried to give him the less possible space for preparing the last corner and then overtake on the straight, but yeah, I had a little bit of understeer. We had a contact, and seemed like a weird contact because his car flipped into my car and hit my rear axle, and yeah, my car was completely broken. I mean, just after the contact, I had to go into the pits because it was impossible to drive. But yeah.
We're seeing plenty of craziness in the traffic. I just want to ask, from your perspective, with this combination of GTD and touring cars, how difficult is it out there at the Brickyard?
Yeah, really difficult, especially the first stint, where you are lapping like a lot of cars at the same time. You always have those contacts and everything, but yeah, it's always very interesting because you're also trying to overtake your opponents using the traffic. So yeah, it's really interesting, but yeah, sometimes it's not ending well like today, but yeah.
I'm sorry how the race ended, Salva, but you'll be back for the season finale looking to go off on a bang. We'll hopefully see a good result out of MSI Esports and the number 14. So disappointment there, but I think focus will go towards Daytona and wrapping off the year in style. And I mean, Lewis, we saw all of that traffic craziness, and we've been focusing so much in the mid-packs of both of the classes so much. It's really been quite quiet at the front of both of the classes.
Look, I mean, there's 27 GTDs out there, and going through the touring cars that, or even just battling amongst yourselves whilst you're trying to get through the touring cars, etc., etc., you know that at least one of those 27s is going to be delivered a pretty nasty bill, and you're just sat there hoping that it's not going to be you, and unfortunately sometimes it is.
Do remember, if you want to check out the latest news from the world of IMSA Esports and this Michelin Global Championship powered by VCO, scan the QR code on your screen to follow along on social medias and all the relevant links. What a 4 rounds we are going to have in the books in 2 weeks' time, and $25,000 will be paid out to drivers all across the world as we get towards the end of the opening half an hour of this round 3. Let's give you a bit of a rundown in this GTD field as we check in with BMW Team Redline and Maximilian Beneke. Behind him, Sean Campbell for Hardpoint by Delta Sport, a Joker replacement driver for them who is running very, very well up in 8th. In front of them, Jamie Moon and the Team 75 Bernard by Sim-RC car. But again, still at the front, it's 1 and 2, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Jamie Fluke for the Apex Racing team. Phil Dinez, though, right on the back of the rear wing of the 97.
Yeah, 98's absolutely checked. I said before that second transfer through traffic might be a big one for that 98, and I mean, how strong can you look in this championship right now? The Apex Racing team, particularly with that 98, are just on a completely different planet. There is the gap. You see them coming through the foreground of shot. Their teammate, Jamie Fluke, like you say, is under a lot of pressure from Phil Denez, the car that we're looking at right now. Doesn't seem like there is any real opportunity for Denez to get through. And this could be intentional, could be from that BMW M4 to potentially not use too much fuel right now to try and extend the first stint ever so slightly, or this could be legit. I mean, whilst the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Brickyard, is okay to overtake at, it's not exactly the easiest.
We have our first in-race penalty from race control as Brabham are off the track. Now, what has happened to the green and gold McLaren to be buried all the way to where our cameras basically cannot pick it up? That is a peculiar spot to see someone stop. Now, I just wonder, we did see this at Laguna Seca, a driver accidentally clicking off anti-lock brakes and then running straight down into turn 2 and then locking up. You can see the damage that Armstrong has. Day done, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be like day done for anything major, that's for sure. They'll try and keep going, of course, get this damage repaired. When you see a car off there, you tend to think it might be assisted, but let's take a look. Going around traffic, one of the R8Gs who moves out. So, to describe this one just a little bit, this is actually like, it's a tricky one because it is kind of unfortunate because, of course, the Brabham's kind of doing its own thing. It's gone over to the left-hand side. It's kind of given enough room for the car. It's going down the inside of those touring cars. They so happen to be racing with each other. There's an opportunity for the R8G to go for it. It might be braking a little bit too late, whilst the Arnage is trying to back off a little bit to assist the Brabham car through the corner. And yeah, they all basically trip up over each other. How do you kind of feel about those ones? Where do you go with them?
Well, I was going to say, we've had our first in-race penalty that's come down for the incident between Urano and Team Redline. It is a 5-second time penalty, for Team Redline to be applied at the end of the race. I would not be shocked if we may have another penalty coming down for... Now, it would have been Julian Sonnen in the championship leading R8G 108. Now, let's head back down immediately to Ewan O'Leary to talk about both sides of that contact and how the mood is in the camps, how Brabham is thinking about it, Ewan, and how Julian Sonnen is now having to be dragged forward by Martin van Lozenoord.
Yeah, the two R8Gs certainly working together right now to try and keep SimRC and Apex Racing Team as close as possible. You see Van Luzenoord just in front of Sonnen just at the moment to just try and limit the damage, but they're not particularly optimistic by the looks of things for the moment. At Brabham, though, I was listening in there. James Armstrong really not very angry at all about it. I'm not entirely sure why, but because it certainly wasn't on him at all. But he was very calm. The team definitely told him that it wasn't his fault at all. I think he already knew that, but they're just hoping politely that the damage won't be too long and they can get back in the race pretty soon. But yeah, not too much anger down there, which is good to see. A nice change from some teams.
Well, those two RAG teammates now have a pair of McLarens trying to work their way through as Altus and Triton will do battle. Correction from race control, by the way, the penalty for Redline was not for contact with Urano, so maybe there's more to come for Gianni Vecchio and that blue Redline machine. This, though, was for contact with Aspar in their Ferrari, who unfortunately, with 5 hits in 3 laps, have informed race control their car is too damaged, they are retired from this race.
Yeah, rough way to start. What's happened to the Pascal Sticks-driven Court sim racing car through the first corner? That is struggling right there. It definitely has got either some damage. The thing is, it doesn't look damaged. Well, it looks fine.
And these touring cars, remember, are on the older damage model, so
it's going okay now. Okay, there must have been either some technical fault or something. Maybe one of those nasty pop-ups where it tells you that local disk C is filling up. Thanks. Had a few of those in my time. Let's see what happens to Pascal Sticks coming through the first corner. Yeah, that was like a pop-up to me.
And then slow down penalty. I think that's probably why he's going so slow. So okay,
yeah, why would you stop like that?
Because sometimes it's better to just clear it and go, depending on where you get it. And these drivers probably have investigated this more than us. Now, penalty has come through for the number 90 Mercedes Urano for a drive-through, lapping the 158 at the last moment. So that was the moment with full send racing. I'm going to be honest, this race has been so crazy that
I remember it.
Okay, you do remember it.
Yeah, it was in not the corner that we're looking at here, but it was coming up through the section, the end of the section.
Oh, right.
Of course, they were down the inside of full send. It was crowd strike that was sent
lost
off
out
as
the
well.
most.
So yeah, I mean, that is a slam dunk penalty. Yeah, it was literally last minute straight down the inside. I mean, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, okay, so now I remember as well. Here's a look on board with Alexei Nesov in that Mercedes-AMG Urano entry, currently running in 10th. And he'll get that penalty and he'll have to serve it within the next 3 laps. They may try and just go a little bit longer and see what happens, but he'll stay out on track in the tow of those in front. So race control working their way through those opening stages of the race. Now we do have a bit of a battle in touring cars. Nesov clearly not impressed. SimRC and Apex Racing team in Hyundai locked on battle. But I tell you what, Nicole Foggy, remember he didn't qualify in round 1 because, I mean, quite simply, he forgot to and just lost track of time, I think. Round 2, they were running well, but gambled in fuel. Did not work out, and so they had a last-second pit stop and then had a post-race penalty as well. But Apex Racing have been very strong, just do not have the results to show for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how some of the seasons have been thus far. We've seen, like, a great team towards the front, and then for whatever reason they don't get the result. It's days of this penultimate round of the championship, which again is just madness. Such a short season. You've got to kind of almost remove yourself from that championship fight of being like, oh, where can we finish in the championship? Ignore that. Just be like, right, okay, this season started and it's been kind of rubbish. Let's just focus on what we can do and trying to get a decent result, maybe a potential race victory. That's what they'll be focused on right now. Nice little bit of VR as well. Don't see too many of those out there.
Well, he is not the first Apex Racing team driver in a touring car to race in VR. You've got George Simmons, you've also got Stilian Chepelevsky. I was actually just about to say we will not head down to Ewan O'Leary because some of the words in that Urano number 90 camp are definitely not suitable for air. Nice. But he's now listening in on board with the 199. So Ewan O'Leary, what's the mood in the camp of the Apex Racing team machine?
Well, I think light-hearted is the way I'd describe it, to be honest. They're barely concentrating on the race from by the sounds of it. You wouldn't think they're in a race at all by listening to them, but they certainly are. They seem to be having a lot of fun anyway, and I think it just suggests to me that there's not a lot of stress in this situation right now between the two. They're just kind of following one another at this stage, but very much enjoy being on camera and very much enjoying themselves out here today as well, which is nice to see, but unbelievably relaxed, really.
Definitely fuel saving game then, isn't it?
Yeah, and do remember, these touring cars can be quite draft dependent, and so that's why I think for that 199 car, it's perfect situations. But Karin Tengunes and Kieran Harrison are the favorites of this championship for a reason, and Harrison is back after a week off. He went on holiday to sunny Spain, so we can forgive him for missing round number 2. Getting closer and closer to hitting that magic 45 minutes when drive time is complete for driver number 1, and you could try something different on the strategy. Check in with Beneke, still hunting down Jamie Moon, and while Beneke has qualified in 7th and been unable to make his way forward, I think ultimately this is not the worst position in the world because they are very much still within touching distance of the podium. Look at that branding on Redline. I talked about Brabham, but on point for Beneke.
Yeah, I saw quite a few of them in there, particularly obviously in the GTE category yesterday in the Le Mans Virtual Series. Will say, Beneke did struggle a little bit in the early stages of that race, kind of almost like looking like they were struggling to get up to speed. They were playing the long game. They ended up nearly winning the race, so yeah, fair enough on that one. Pretty much, I feel it's the same kind of mentality today. Let's just back off. Let's not attack things too much. Let's just play longer. Because look, you would see Beneke would go straight down the inside right now of that number 75. I think they're just playing the long game. No need to attack right now. Let's focus on the fuel game. Let's focus on the gap, not getting too extreme. Maybe a victory is out of the question, but something decent when it comes to results later on.
So there is a drive-through penalty that has come down for the Romain Grosjean Esports number 108 for the contact that led to Brabham in the wall. You thought that was Stonewall. RAG contending that maybe the braking was a little bit early out of the Arnage touring car machine. So we'll see how things go. Beneke talking with his teammates as he works out of the final corner.
It's what I was going to say about that. It's why I would almost not put too much blame on the RAG in that scenario, where basically the Arnage competition. We've always said this before. When you're in the lead category, you always kind of try and tell those touring cars almost like, don't try and assist us going through traffic, because that's where the issues are caused. Just let us get on with it. Let us do it our way, because when you try and get offline, when you try and lift early, when you try and do all these things to almost assist, what you're actually doing is being unpredictable, and that's potentially what our Nage competition could have been doing. And that I'm sure Race Control will take a little look into that one, because. Like I say, you don't really want to be, you don't really want to be on the bad end of Race Control in those kind of scenarios, and they've got a lot to look at when it comes to those instances. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, for sure. So talking, by the way, this battle has behind them Sean Campbell. I mentioned the Joker driver today for Hardpoint by Delta Sport. Hardpoint carrying that 99 over here to the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship in a partnership with Delta Sport. Remember, they're coming off a 6th place finish last time out. Yes, assisted by some of the post-race penalties that did move them up very slightly, but they were running well and used the strategy to their advantage. There's Nicolas Cage staring behind Sean Campbell. But at the very least, we get to look at Sean Campbell's face rather than the more artistic views he gives us on some of the other race broadcasts. However, one thing that I always like to point out with Sean Campbell, such a talented young driver across the platforms, Lewis, still races on a single monitor.
Yeah, which, I mean, respect too, because I also race on a single monitor, which actually, well, no, I don't respect it. I want the excuse. He's very quick, and also a massive collector of office chairs, it appears. As great, by the way, to have that on-board lap with him earlier on. To talk us through the lap, to talk us through what we're expecting from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, from how these cars are going to race around there, and then also setting a PB, because why not? Whilst you're recording, you might as well banter about on that one.
Yeah, that was quite fun as well. He's just like, oh, what's the time going to be? Oh, it's a personal best. And he's smiling. I think he's being told.
One hand on the wheel, chill. That Race Control will not be happy when they see this, I'll tell you that.
I think probably someone's telling him, look cool, you're on camera right now. I always find it how interesting how much these drivers talk, because that's something I used to do when I was slightly competitive. I was quite talkative during racing. I know there's a lot of other people who do not like that, and so it is quite a different environment. We're coming up, though, on the close of the first 40 minutes here in round 3 of this championship. 2 hours still left to go. Apex Racing running 1 and 2, but it is looking good for Kevin Ellis Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez to make it 3 for 3 as they will cross the yard of bricks for yet another lap. 28 laps done. About 20 minutes before they have to dive their way down onto pit lane, and look how close to the walls they're getting. I get a little bit uncomfortable when I see how close they really do get.
And also, speaking of positive things for the Apex Racing team generally, their teammates just made up 2.5 seconds over Phil Denez. There's been a bit of switch positions. Oscar Rene and Daniel Pastel switching positions, 4th spot now, going the way of the Cova 77. So a little bit of a move there, but Apex Racing team are starting to pull their way through. This is that battle for 4th position. This is Oscar Rene, Daniel Pastel directly behind Williams Esports. Jamie Moon not too far off the rear end, and obviously, Max Benecke keeping close, keeping company, maybe saving that little bit of fuel. Would you rather, right now, be in this position, Oscar Rene's position, ahead of a car? Would you kind of rather be behind and saving that fuel? Because I don't know about you. I genuinely would want to be saving fuel.
Well, I think you're now, more than halfway through the stint. I think Rene sees the 4-second gap in front of him and maybe knows that maybe he's faster than Daniel Pastor in that Mercedes-AMG Team Williams car. And so if he can close the gap to those in front, this is probably the time to do it. May give a little bit out on fuel. On board with the flying. I will say, these new Cova shirts, Iku Mericala has recently joined us at RaceSpot TV, but is also one of the social and content men behind the scenes for Cova. I'll send you my address. And,
I want one.
Yeah. We're already asked for 2 jerseys today, by the way.
No, but this is the thing, is that I've recently just received a new one, by the way. Netrex Grand Prix, sending one out. Our Nage competition still yet to.
I got mine.
No, I know you have. I have been in discussions with them. I am getting one, don't you worry. But anyone else, just send us a couple of T-shirts. I mean, I've got to have them all on now.
You had just mentioned, by the way, Jamie Fluke pulling out a gap to Phil Denez. It's come right back into his equation. The gap down to a second. And what does John Hindorf always say on IMSA radio? The traffic will give and the traffic will take. And we'll be joined by John Hindorf next time out on November 20th for our season finale. He'll join the booth for about 10 to 15 minutes. Chat about all things racing and esports with Lewis and myself, because John Hindorf loves a good sim race as much as he loves a real race. and there is no one more qualified to tell you that the racing may not be real in terms of the cars. The friendships that you can make, the wins, those very much are all tangible.
Well, this is going to turn into a Fast and Furious movie then. My goodness.
I mean, let's be real, Lewis. We hate each other.
That is true, but we are family or something. Yeah, it's...
Where's Vin Diesel behind my shoulder?
Yeah, I know. I need to crack open we're not allowed to be sponsored by them, but a beverage of their choice. It is, yeah, I mean, the whole thing of like, sim racing, like I say, whilst it is virtual, etc., the racing itself generally is still real. They're still taking the same level of risks that you would do in real life, so there's no danger on it. But you're still, going wheel to wheel. You're still racing hard. It's still a good bit of fun, and also extremely stressful.
Yadis Albert has just jumped into the VCO Twitch chat, by the way, to say commentators stealing all the jerseys. I just want to point out, Mike Yao, if you're listening, you have.
I'm part of the team.
Yeah, I'm waiting for all my various jerseys from Mike Yao. So one of them hopefully being a Brabham jersey, but yes.
I'm part of the squad, mate, and I've only got one squad, one shirt from the entire team. So
ooh, look at
more.
this. Look at this angle on Antiohola. Now, both, I think, these sets of COVID teams, the BMW and the Ferrari, coming off the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series, where a handful of these drivers have re-qualified their way to the top step of iRacing's road ladder, where, for example, Gianni Vecchio had to slog his way back down through the Contender Series. He was one. We saw the likes of Oscar Rene as well. They'll be able to put a little bit more focus onto this race, and of course focus such an important topic. Defense, an important factor as well. Gianni Vecchio, after the penalty that he's going to have to serve post-race, trying to work his way back forward, but Ahola slams the car on the inside and will run out of the final corner and try and block into turn one.
Well, bearing in mind that Gianni Vecchio was 27th in class, now running in 14th in class, looking for 13th. That is halfway back up the order. Here it goes, that slipstream and the run off the final corner. You can see once again the damage that's on the rear end of this Cobra car, but Gianni Vecchio should be able to make this one up. Got the inside line through the first corner, and that number 17 will get up into that 13th position. Again, they've been picking away at it. They've just been gaining the positions, trying to gain those extra points and whatnot after what has been a pretty torrid time in the first 45 minutes.
We'll head down to Ewan O'Leary in a second. There's a couple of things that he's brought up that I just want to discuss first, because he's been listening into SimRC, and Corentin Gunez, I don't think is too impressed by how that chicane, the fast one that replaced the double hairpins at the start of the lap, plays in a multi-class race. And I'll just remind him that the only reason that the 8-hour race that is hosted here at Indianapolis over the last couple of years used the old layout with the old hairpins in 2021 was because when NASCAR came here, that chicane was so damaged it was unusable. But it is now the de facto default layout that the cars use. But Ewan O'Leary, I mean, some frustration for SimRC, some excitement about what Hardpoint thinks they're fighting for.
Yeah, absolutely. SimRC, as you mentioned, Gwyn is just not enjoying it himself in terms of actually driving this circuit. The multi-class traffic, especially through that chicane, seems to be a little bit of a problem. But optimism for Hardpoint. We're seeing a lot of different strategies starting to develop themselves in this first 45 minutes. Lorenzo Bonda has been listening in down there, and they believe that they're fighting for P4 at the end of this race with the fuel saving and all the strategy that will come with it. So interesting to see what they've got up their sleeve to be able to get up to those positions. But also just want to comment on TCR as well. Let's not forget about how important that penalty for the number 108 REG car was. We did kind of mention it at the time, but they are of course leading this championship by 50 points. And so with SimRC leading the race, they're almost certainly going to lose that championship lead as things stand.
Yeah, we'll try and get some points updates to you at the end of the race if we can. Provisional points updates, of course, but so far this race has been relatively clean as we see the Honda Racing HPD entry and Dakota Dickinson dive their way to pit lane. Now Dakota is replacing Jacob Abel, who is unable to race, still alongside Carl Whitmer, though.
He's Abel is unable. That was really nice work there, Arjuna. Good effort.
Unintentionally punny there on my side. Now, are we going to see some pit stops soon, though? Because I do think we're in that window where you can, again, get the driver out of the car, and that's what Dakota Dickinson is doing. Whitmer will take over to the end of this race. And we always say this, Lewis, even if you've got two world-class drivers in a team, from race to race, there's usually going to be one that's just faster on the track.
Yeah, and in competitions like this, that bit faster genuinely can just be 1-2 tenths. Doesn't matter if it's a tenth or two. That over a 2-hour period, especially considering it's a lap that's incredibly short. Realistically, you're talking the laps are roughly in the GTD category, sort of in the 1 minute 22s, 1 minute 23s, 24s, etc., etc.
There we go.
There's a look at the points, and to no shock, Apex Racing team are like, yeah, okay, bye.
Now, it's not mathematically done heading into the final round as it runs right now. However, remember, a race win gives you 350 points. Apex Racing team would be 217 points clear. If it finishes as is, they would get the perfect 385. My word. I mean, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez have just come here to dominate.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, do you know what? Apex haven't had a great year. We haven't won everything. We've won quite a lot. We've probably won more than we haven't won, realistically. And yet, we've not won enough. So they've come to this championship and thought, well, that's 4 race wins. They've ticked off half of them so far, and they're looking to continue the trend. But we must remind you, we are only 50 minutes into this race. There is still an hour and 50 left to go, and complacency in races like this is 100% the enemy. If you do get complacent, that is where a crash, a misjudgment, something like that through traffic, going a little bit too aggressive, making a move into a silly corner like, I don't know, trying to dive down the inside of that chicane and being like, yeah, I'll be fine on some touring cars. Don't do it. Be wise. Read the road, always.
So let's head back down, actually very quickly, before we head down to O'Leary, quick look at the touring car live points. SimRC would grab a slight advantage, of course, over the 108, as Lewis was mentioning with that penalty, but look how close the 199 is bringing themselves into the mix with the way the points play out. SimRC by no means go into that final race with this championship comfortably in their grasp. It is going to be a fight to the very end. Down to you and O'Leary once more. You know, the 98 is fast, but sometimes we say loose is fast at Indianapolis when it comes to Indy cars. Ellis Jr. is a veteran of the iRacing Indianapolis 500. He's still complaining about the balance of his car.
Yeah, absolutely. The Porsche is a little bit light on its feet, a little bit wayward on the rear end, I would say, from time to time. Kevin Ellis Jr. describing the car as edgy, a little bit of a handful through the S's, but other than that, he seems to be making it work absolutely fine. He was just instructing his teammate really what to do when he gets in, of course, and so we'll be seeing that a little bit later, I think. I'm not actually sure. I didn't pick up whether they were making a driver change this time or not. Not that I would tell you anyway, but I didn't pick up whether they are this time or not. But either way, they're just kind of talking through the motions at the moment. They haven't actually had to make any in-car adjustments in this race. So while it is a bit of a handful, it's clearly not that bad for Kevin Ellis Jr.
As Ewan alluded to, we are grateful for the teams for giving us some insight into their team communications. We're not going to give you too many of the specifics, but always good to at least hear. Kevin Ellis Jr. is wrangling that car around 6 seconds clear of his teammate, who has now actually built back up that advantage to Phil Denez and the BS Turner machine. 3 seconds, splitting second and third at this point in the race. Down the inside looks Pure Sims in there. Lamborghini as Antiola tries to hold on to 14th spot, but Alexander Davidson has climbed 5 spots so far, and he wants a 6th down into the final sector of the lap.
Yeah, pretty nice little move, of course. Again, the struggling Cova car that he's just made a move on that Pure Sims Esports, just making up another spot. Nice and easy one, like I say. Just kind of got the up and under coming out of 10 through 11 to the inside of 12. Wasn't really fought too hard, but this is a bit where, despite making a move into that final sector, you might be opened up for a chance coming down into that first corner, navigating a little bit of traffic. They've got one of the R8Gs that will probably come into play once they've gone through about the second corner. Of course, lapping, going rather through the corners, through first and second corner, so much faster. And now they've already caught up to that R8G. This is where it's a little bit tricky, especially when you've got that pressure directly behind. This is where you can really make just the worst calls going through traffic.
Rolling through opening sector. This is where Corentin Gunes was so frustrated, and Pure Sims will bully their way past Core Sim Racing, who have to now check up and will likely have to lose some momentum as well. The benefit is touring cars are able to straddle the inside curb a little bit more than the GTD machines are able to do, but it's still scary, scary moment. Now it's Arnage looking around the outside of Kova, but Antiola says no thank you, squeezes his way through. That was a little bit my corner-esque.
Well, I mean, still, Davidoff, great effort in the interviews before we went live to actually give it a go. Doing the car noises, disappointed in half the people that just went, no. At least, I mean, look, I could tell that some of them were like, that's a car in the pit lane. That is a car in the pit lane. I can hear it. I know it. And, you know, Davidoff was one of those. I can hear the car in there. So, you know, respect to that. I want to see more attempts in future when we do these kind of questions. And there is that question about car noises. I want to see more people actually giving it a go. Don't be a wimp.
I'm just saying, this is the second year that we have asked that question on a RaceSpot TV broadcast. Was a little bit disappointed this time around. You remember last year, Lewis, we had some fun, especially with the Coanda guys at the team house, really giving us the full beans with their efforts.
And where are they now?
Yes, no, where are they now? It's a good question indeed. So I do think, by the way, we have had another touring car driver change, but I think this one maybe has also seen some damage. Full send in the 158. Dominic Kortum has jumped out. Alex Torres will jump in. Now, Full Send, remember, have had one of their cars running up at the field. This is not that one. This is the 158, not the 185. Naveed Hussein is still up in 6th position, but dropping and rolling. Short stop for Torres, just 32 seconds.
Yeah, to be fair, car looks okay, so I don't think it's necessarily damaged, but it still might have been the odd little bit here and there. You can see, I think there's a little bit on the left-hand side. Very hard to tell with their livery. But I don't know. They might have had a couple of.
I think I actually know what happened. I don't think they actually went off the track. I have the feeling that they made a mistake on pit entry. We'll see if we can spool that one up. But
did they lock up and not miss the corner?
No, it's more. You know what happened. Yeah, because I've done it before, except I didn't realize it until too late.
I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I've watched you
forgot to pit
whilst driving. Oh, really?
Yes, they almost forgot to pit, and I think I had to shortcut the track. So we'll see if we can grab that one. Do you remember as well, if you are watching on the VCO Twitch, enable Command Center and take control of your viewing experience. Go full multi-view, along with the likes of Jamie Fluke, Bruno Spengler, the guys over at the Impulse team sharing their team feed as well there, but along with Yannick Lapchan as well. You can really get the most out of your viewing experience. There's Arnage going past Semper Racing in their car. Back down into Ewan O'Leary because, well, there's a bit of drama for SimRC, Ewan, because Corentin Gunes has been left alone for the time being in that team camp.
Well, yeah, well, literally as he said that, Kieran Harrison joined again, so it's fine. I was just slightly fearful that he was going to be left without a teammate, and then obviously you do need to actually make a driver change and fulfil the minimum drive time, of course, so I was getting a little bit worried for them. But they're absolutely fine by the looks of things. No panic there, and as we've seen for most of the race so far, no panic in the top two in TCR at all. So far in this race. We're really waiting for that one to develop. It's going to be a race of fuel saving, but it's not quite yet apparent how much either of them have been doing.
It's been I don't want to say quiet race, Lewis, because by no means has it been incident-free. But compared to what we've had those first two rounds, it feels like what happens in most championships. The drivers settle into a rhythm. They get used to racing, alongside those wheel-to-wheel, and now basically they're all just going as fast as they can.
I think it's kind of also a bit of part and parcel of the circuit that we're racing at. We were racing at Road Atlanta, the roller coaster, absolutely crazy. Then also we had the Laguna Seca, let's be honest, one of the most crazy racetracks you can ever go to. Coming to somewhere like the Brigade, as much as it can be tricky in traffic, especially going through like the fast chicane and whatnot, even through this section here, coming through the back end at 7, 8, 9 and 10, of course, there are those bits that are a bit trickier. It is a bit more almost like open for the traffic to actually lap calmer than what you have at Laguna Seca, where it is literally just let's just enter Crazy Town and see what happens. It'll be kind of Daytona is sort of a 50-50. It's not, for me, it shouldn't be as calm as this, but I don't think it'll be as crazy as Laguna Seca. So it's kind of like that almost nice middle ground. And then we've got the champs to play for, so who knows what's going to happen.
I don't know if I'm as optimistic about Daytona as you, just because of especially the bus stop, right? The way that the cars will go through there. Touring cars may be slower in, faster out, or rather, faster in, slower out. You know what I mean. They'll go through differently. Here's a look at the RaceSpot TV replay, and so at least he recognized it on the lap, unlike me, who would have gone around and run out of fuel and needed to take the tow back to pit lane.
Don't worry, mate. Don't worry. I know just privately in our little chat, I'm going to say it anyway, Leary pointing out beautifully that I once did that from a 2-lap lead at Sebring. I will openly say it on broadcast. I also did it in a race where my teammates decided to bin it constantly, and that is okay.
Who were your teammates there?
I don't know. I don't know. I've erased it from my memory. It might have been you, but it wasn't a pretty experience, and it will never happen again.
We haven't closed the team Discord, so never say never.
Is it still open?
It is still open. The race that Lewis is talking about, by the way, is Jimmy Broadbent's 23 Hours of Zolder, which is being partnered up with VCO the last couple of years to raise money, of course, and a lot of fun, although Lewis and myself, like we said, maybe had more fun off the track than we did on the track at the end of the day. I have also done it outside of that race, by the way. I was leading the iRacing Bathurst 12 Hours with a 2-lap lead and did the very same thing. Fortunately, we still won the race, but I would never have lived that one down. Still, this battle between Redline goes running down in towards turn number 1. Let's see if they're going to be able to catch up to the Jamie Moon car. By the way, he was broken away very slightly, and you had raised the question if Oscari Rene in that Ferrari maybe would want to save some fuel, Lewis, but he's pulled out almost a 1.7 second advantage over the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports Mercedes. So I just wonder, Oscari Rene made the right call.
Oh yeah, no, it might have been the you're saving too much fuel for me, mate. I'm gonna get on with this race at some point. Again, looking at the gap that's going, I've always kind of said when it. We kind of see this when we did the BMW Sim GT Cup, of course, and you would have like a train of about 25 cars, and that was okay because even if you were 25th, you were still okay. You just saved loads of fuel, and you were keeping your eye because the leader was still in the train, right? So there was no panic in that. The moment they start to break away, that's when you see everything get turned to 11 because they start feeling the losing side of the leader. It is kind of the same in this race. It would have been what Oscari Rene was like behind Daniel Pazos, thinking, look, if I'm going to sit here and save the fuel, that's great, but now they've all started to check out. Williams Esports race, though, into the pit lane directly behind what we were looking at there with the hard point by Delta. So that is Carl Janssen into the pit lane. Is that the first? Yeah, no one else is coming ahead of him.
It's a wave of pit stops. We've just not even gotten to the top of hour 1 in racing, and to see cars in, I think, does indicate that fuel saving is going to be somewhat important, at the very least, to minimize your time in pit lane. There's a look on board with Mr. Janssen as he trundles down pit lane. We'll use the left side of the road as opposed to what we've been running so far. We'll hit his box, and I think we're going to see a driver change. You see him hitting the button. Will release himself from the car, and taking over in that machine, it will be Daniel Lafuente, who whenever you see him in that bright green machine, you know he's here to charge his way forward. Drive time complete for Janssen, then focus will be on supporting his teammates. And I do think this is the right call, Lewis, just because of the way the temperatures are going to go. They're going to cool off, and I do think you can get a driver to complete the race with 1 hour and 40 minutes on their tires.
Yeah.
Get it done now and get it done soon.
Yeah, especially like I said, with the temperatures dropping off. Again, it's about managing the change of conditions. You know, Leary was saying this earlier on in the broadcast. It's about that part of the race, and I've always said when it comes to changeable conditions, and that is whether it is in this case with it going from day into sunset, or even in standard endurance races up to all the way up to night, or even if it's when rain's coming down or whatever, or you're expecting the temperature to change. You want the same driver to be in all the way through that change, because when the conditions changing, you don't want to have to explain, oh, by the way, the car's actually a bit slippery loose coming out of turn 10, and when you might lock up a little bit into 12 more than expected, it might be a little bit squiggly on the rear, it's understeering through one. Then as a driver, you're kind of going into it thinking, oh god, what is this car going to drive like? And you have to spend a lap getting used to it. Meanwhile, if you're driving it through that change, you don't even have to communicate, you're just reacting to it all the time. And that's why, like I say, I think getting a driver change done now is actually a really good call.
Hopefully we get a chance to talk to some of these drivers. And again, thank you to Michelin for their support of this start of the virtual revolution, helping to make the $25,000 prize pool possible. So, this is what we expected. Corin Tengunes comes in, Nicole Foggy stays out after saving the fuel behind the race leader. Now we see if they do driver changes.
I've just seen that we'll be able to catch an interview with Carl Janssen, who is still apparently a core driver, according to the RaceSpot team speak. So that is outdated, sir. There you go. He's updated it finally. But like I say, I think this is a great time to do it, but it is a busy time in pit lane. It's going to be tricky, but if you're out on track right now, this is the time when it's kind of like, right, let's go after that, a fast lap now, because it's pretty empty out there.
Ewan O'Leary did mention, by the way, no tires on that BS Turner machine as it went back out onto track. So Phil Denez will take the first 2 hours of the race potentially and then hand over to his teammate for the final 45-50 minutes. Got to be careful when calculating the drive time. But here comes the rest of the GTD field down onto pit lane. They were able to go about 62.5 minutes. Kevin Ellis Jr. hits the marks and instantly says goodbye to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's Alejandro Sanchez, maybe the fastest man in the championship, at least in terms of form right now, that jumps in to that 98.
Yeah, I got to say, for Kevin Ellis Jr., brilliant opening stint. Like I say, you always, when you jump into a car and you're given a leg lift, especially when you've got the confidence like Alejandro Sanchez, this is beautiful. You just sat there being like, well, to be honest, the hard work has already been done. Now it's just about bringing it home, which sounds crazy because we've not even reached the halfway point of the race thus far. It's just absolutely kind of that calming thing inside the car, that sort of like the reduction of the craziness thing that you can go through traffic the way you want to. You can pick and choose your battles essentially, and knowing Alejandro Sanchez, he's still going to rush his way through traffic and set fastest laps left, right and centre and still pull away an enormous lead because he is pretty good.
So it does mean that Denez and BS Turner will take over the net race lead for the time being once we see Altus and Tristan Iglesias, who's done 45 laps, by the way. Yeah, doing a great job to maximize fuel in that Lamborghini. Once he heads down to pit lane, it will be the 96 out front. And let's see what Denez is able to do. Now, Hardpoint by Delta Sport was able to go quite long, and I'm surprised to see, as there we go, Altus in. Surprised, to be honest, to see Sean Campbell out, given the speed and relative pace that he seemed to have. Now, Christophe Herbigno, the regular season driver, takes over in the 99 and exits pit lane. Now, where is he going to merge relative to everyone? Because I do wonder if we've got a bit of a split strategy call going on, Lewis, here. Remember, this is what we saw in round one, which went caution-free.
Yeah, and I think a lot of drivers, if I was coming into this one, whilst we did have a couple of cautions last round, of course, I'd be coming into this knowing this kind of circuit that I wouldn't be predicting a caution around here. I genuinely sat there thinking I'm probably not going to get one. This is not a circuit which generally invites that kind of stuff. Sometimes, obviously, you never really know for sure, but I think it would be an unwise call to try and predict the future and try and do something. But that's why they're in the car. BS Turner then will take over the race lead in the GTD category as expected. No tyres being taken on that stop field. Denez still behind the wheel. Obviously, I think they'll be going for another 35 minutes. This will be the short stint here, doing the hour and 40 minutes in the early stage on that single set of tyres.
So let's see if we can actually quickly run you down through pit stop times as all cars have finished their first cycle of pit stops. And let's give you a bit of an hourly update as well. So let's start with GTD then. BS Turner hits the front. Only 30 seconds in the box for them. However, with the driver change still to do, they will drop behind the Apex Racing Team duo. It is really the 96 fighting the 97. Alejandro Sanchez will be promoted back to the race lead as Phil Denez has to go 3 wide with a bit of touring car traffic. Never what your race leader wants to see. BMW Team Redline, Beneke gambling to try and make his way forward and hoping maybe for a caution. He stops for 40 seconds, a little bit shorter than a full tank of fuel. But meanwhile, the biggest gamble of them all is likely for Altus Esports, with Iglesias only putting 31 seconds of fuel into that car. Definitely no tires thrown onto that Lamborghini. Maybe trying to split the race in two and get the teammate in a little bit earlier. Running down through a handful more cars, Tumas Tatila, almost a full service for him in the number 77, has worked his way out in 6th. Gianni Vecchio, a 40-second stop, maybe in contention for Michelin Driver of the Day, by the way, with the charge he's had. He's in 7th, with Ryan Barneveld similarly taking no tires, trying to work his way up into 8th. Then full service behind with Williams Esports, Mercedes-AMG Team Williams Esports, Team 75 Bernard by SimRC, thinking that Bram Van Putten will be able to go to the end from there. But Lewis, run us down through the touring cars.
Yeah, indeed. Again, been a crazy race thus far. Once we've done with the strategy in the pit lane, the 176 for SimRC is leading by a fair margin now. It is over R8G after a slightly shortened pit stop from Martin van Loosendaal doing something slightly different. They were the earliest to come into the pit lane, but there is just fuel only, I believe, from the top two. Harrison taking over, though, that 176. Gal Valero for the 199, a much longer pit stop, so clearly doing at least all 4 tyres, potentially might just be the two comparatively to the others, but Gal Valero, the 199 in third. The 118 belonging to our nice competition in 4th position, with Pure Sims rounding out the top 5, but you can see there a complete mess when it comes down to who's taking what on this first pit stop. Much variety in that stationary time in the pit lane.
Bit of concern now in the camp of SimRC, by the way, that 37 seconds versus 49 to the Apex Racing team, with both teams doing driver changes, likely to be because SimRC did not take rear tires and gambled on only changing the fronts. It appears as though that gamble has not paid off. The balance of the car maybe not as they would expect. Tell you what though, Lewis, we chatted with Alejandro Sanchez earlier. Let's talk with Carl Jansen. You'll have him standing by in pit lane.
Yeah, Carl Jansen joining us, of course, from the Williams Esports Racer. Not the core, I saw you joining us that, don't worry. We won't talk about that. First stint, hour down. Talk us through what's been happening with the car, with the stints. It's been pretty tricky out there, but still running all right.
Yeah, it was good. I feel like the first stint was really good now. Obviously, we had a bit of a bad qualifying, so we started out in 15th, but yeah, I think working up to 9th or 8th or whatever we had in the end was really good. Had some passing or like some overtakes to do, and yeah, it was very good all in all, I feel like.
A couple of teams haven't taken tyres, or they've gambled on these kind of things like Filtonez and whatnot in the BS20 car. What are your thoughts on those kind of gambles on strategy? Is it okay tyre wear around here? Are we kind of expecting this to be a problem later on for them? Is this something that you're going to be gambling with a bit later on? Obviously, Lafuente behind the wheel.
I think everyone will go on that strategy. It's just kind of whether you do it on the first stint or on the second stint. We kind of do it on the second stint. Some people do it on the first stint. It's kind of what you feel like doing, because you're gonna have to take 4 new tires at some point during the race. But it's just kind of when you take them. At least for us, the tire wear isn't really there to do no tires. So and I don't really think it's there for anyone either. Maybe some cars can pull it off, but it's gonna be tight, and it's gonna be a real gamble on the tire wear. And yeah, I mean, when you hit the cliff with these tires, then you really hit the cliff. There's no grip anywhere, and you lose maybe seconds a lap, you know. So you really have to be careful with that. It's about how much you want to gamble and how much you can gamble as well.
What should we be expecting? Obviously, the next hour and a half of this race, we're going to see a bit of a setting sun. The conditions are going to slightly change. How should we be seeing like that affect the cars? Is that going to help on tyre wear? Is that going to make something slightly worse? Is it going to affect the balance of the cars? Are we going to see more drama, less drama? What do you think?
I think obviously now, since it seems like the track temp is dropping slightly, since we are racing to the sunset here. I think the tire wear is just gonna get better and better, and yeah, with it getting better and better, it might be that the cars that have gambled now might lose some time, because they, over the longer distance, have worse tire wear than if you do the strategy on the second, like on the last 2 stints. But yeah, I mean, it all comes down to how the first stint is kind of thing. If you've been able to sit behind other guys and taking it very easy, and been saving up the tires, then obviously it's probably a smart idea to do it on the first stint. But yeah, it depends a bit how hard you push as well. I pushed quite hard with my tires, so we decided to change driver and tires now. And obviously some people keep the cars in, and yeah. So Yeah, it's just kind of playing the tire game here. That's kind of how you gain and lose places. So I guess we will see with how far the tire or how far the track temp drops, and yeah, should be fun to see how this plays out.
Well, cheers for joining us, and good luck with the rest of the race. Daniel Lafuente behind the wheel now. Carl Janssen obviously jumping into the commentary booth there to give us a little bit of an understanding as to what the first hour of this race has been like. And I mean, he seems pretty calm, to be honest. I'd certainly not be getting out of the car. I'd be sweating for starters.
Yeah, but that's the main difference between us. We're tryhards.
We're definitely not athletes.
Oh, no, we definitely are not. And I think that's something that people just do not appreciate. The level of mental focus actually takes a physical strain on your body. So that's why you see the more full-time teams and sim drivers focus a lot more on not just physical health, to be fair, mental health as well is so important to getting the most out of your driving. 90 minutes then left to go in this round 3. Sun continues to set as Gianni Vecchio peeks out on the Kova 77. Tuomas Tassila running in 6th, of course, after a full service, taking over from Ascari Rene, and now struggling a little bit in the clutches of Redline, whose double stint on tires seems to be going very, very well. Head over to Ewan O'Leary very, very quickly, because he was checking in with BS Turner at the front of the field in the 96 that are still thinking they are in contention for a podium, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. They're currently, of course, in the lead, and they were more worried in their confiscations there, Fildeness and Renatava, more worried about the whereabouts of the Redline BMW there in 4th place than they were about the 2 Apex Racing Team cars. Phil was getting told that he was doing enough, at least on pace, to be in that podium position by the end of the day. So they're feeling pretty confident. But there was no mention of Apex Racing Team. I don't know whether they're just discounting them as even possible to catch at this stage or quite what's going on, but there was no mention of the 98 or 97 at all.
Maybe a bit more focus on those behind. Thank you, Ewan O'Leary, working alongside with Lorenzo Bonder to keep us up to date with all the news from down in that virtual paddock. Great shots of the sun, and I was fortunate enough to be there just a couple of weeks ago for the first race into the night, sitting in the PA booth alongside a fellow sim commentator, by the way, DJ Clark. It was very cool to be there with him, and just to see the sun coming down through the grandstands on this pit straight, shining onto the yard of bricks, then having the podium ceremony under the night lights. It's going to be special when IMSA is able to do that in 2023 for the battle on the bricks. Do remember, VCO Command Center, take control of your viewing experience. Follow along with the likes of Kevin Ellis Jr. Well, now follow along with him outside of the car, as well as Bruno Spengler, Jamie Fluke, Yannick Lapchan, and the entire team at Impulse Go Multi-View for today's race. I mean, Lewis, relatively calm for race control so far, and after craziness 2 weeks ago, no justification for a safety car so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, race control are generally very busy. They had that busy opening start to the race. Now, after that, they might be sat there thinking, does anyone make any penalties? No? We're all right. Okay, fair enough. Obviously, part of this comes down to last round. It was a little bit too crazy, and race control. I mean, you were there for the briefing before the race. I'm sure having a little bit of a talk with all of the drivers to be like, right, let's bring this a bit more in line. Whilst the entertainment value was high at Laguna Seca, let's bring some of that professionalism that we love to see back into it. And hopefully we won't see anyone getting spun onto the entry of pit lane and then randomly flipping after a couple of seconds of stationary time. It is what it is when it comes to that. But it's been a much cleaner race.
To be fair, that was quite a hilarious moment. Yeah, it was quite amusing. Let's talk, though, with Kevin Ellis Jr. Nothing amusing of the pace out of the Apex Racing Team in that 98. Kev, I mean, finally on pole position here. What clicked in qualifying? How perfect was that lap?
I think Alejandro lost about a tenth or so in the first 2 corners, but somehow managed to kind of pull it back at the end of the lap. So, yeah, I mean, it's always the same. You know, you have your ultimate pace that you do in practice, and then when the pressure's on, you typically have about a tenth of drop off. So I think for us, it's probably the same as probably everyone, or maybe our guys are performing a little bit better under the pressure. I don't really know what's been clicking recently, but it keeps on seeming to go right. So we're just going to keep on riding that wave.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about it all going right, on course potentially for 3 in a row, and it's been such a great year for you guys, not just here in iRacing, on other platforms as well. We talked about how that facility has helped you. What's your personal highlight of this year so far? Yes, we still got a couple of months to go, but I know after this championship's over, you have a relatively light schedule to close out the year.
Yeah, I think after round 4, I'll basically be packing it in for the year competitively and just enjoying some time off. But I mean, there's been a lot of highlights. Obviously, being fortunate enough to win a PESC race is obviously up there. Especially at Barcelona, coming off the back of round 1, which was really, not good. I didn't perform. We missed a trick with the tires, and ultimately, yeah, we didn't have a good weekend. But I think winning the Porsche GB title was definitely the highlight of this year. But who knows, if we can win all 4 races and win this championship, then that might just have to top it. But yeah, I mean, as you say, like, being here in the facility and being able to bring everyone together and having Johan here for the past couple months has been great as well. And I think we've definitely seen an improvement in Johan's performance as well since he came here. Not that I had much to improve on being back home. I've just seen us get put in the wall by a TCR.
Oh no, okay, we'll let you go because there's actually fighting going on as well. Thanks for joining us, Kev. We'll pick up what happened to Alejandro Sanchez. We'll see if there's drama, but they were bump drafting down the back straightaway there, and it's getting physical here as the sun continues to set. Gianni Vecchio trying to fend off Tumas Tatalo, who's now trying to charge his way forward, and the Zebra was the one trying to push his way forward.
Yeah, no, I thought they were going to go 3 wide, by the way, down into T7. That was absolutely insane. Terrifying stuff. Sorry to cut across Kevin Ellis Jr. there and pull his interview short, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree and understand as to what's going on there. Absolute madness. And here we go. We're going to get it again. The number 70 taking that defensive line. Gianni Vecchio and Tatalo going side by side again. They've got Impulse ahead as well. It's going to get very sketchy between the two. The Cova Ferrari around the outside of the first corner, inside for the second. Nearly a bit of a brush between the two, and still BS competition. So I think, where's my opportunity to jump in here? Impulse getting dived by 1, 2 and 3 GTD cars.
I think Impulse made the best of a bad situation there because they moved left off the natural racing line that they initially were taking and allowed all 3 to get on through. Back down to Ewan O'Leary very, very quickly because he's listening in to the BS competition camp, and Ryan Barnabel's not really sure why they're fighting this hard.
Yeah, absolutely, commenting that in this fight alone they've lost 2 seconds to the others, and there's no real point. Ryan Barnabel was explaining a little bit earlier on, and I think that feeling is only going to get stronger now.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse on board with the Ryan Barneveld entry, and looking on board with him as well as now Tatalo's on the outside as they'll flatten off the banking and roll onto the brakes. Vecchio once again in front into the very same corner. 2 seconds in what, a lap and a half, and Tatalo's going for it this time as well. It's getting a little bit silly now if we're being fair.
Watch this drive though for Barneveld. He might have gone a little bit too early, honestly, with that apex, but he's going to be right there. Might just make it 3 wide because he's going to get irritated. Look at this. They are going to go 3 wide straight down the middle. Woefully, Vecchio sees that. They are 3 wide on that start-finish straight, and I can understand why Barneveld is like, let's get this sorted, lads. He's already cleared Vecchio. He might clear the Cobra as well. It's exactly what he needs.
He had enough top-end grunt. It was all about the setup from the penultimate corner. Able to clear Vecchio, who, remember, may have a little bit of damage. Tatalo had a moment, but now it is the core sim racing car that blocks the way, and Ryan Barneveld takes the BMW team BS competition number 89 up into 6th position. And do remember, we were talking about that moment at pit entry at Laguna Seca at the end of the race. That was a car that was upside down with Bruno Spengler behind the wheel.
Yeah, I can understand why he was getting irritated there, and now he sat there being like, right, you know how you were fighting before? Can you just keep that up so I can just pull away a little bit here? Of course, that's not what's going to happen because Gianni Vecchio is just going to fight with Ryan Barneveld right now, but they are not thinking long game at the moment. They are thinking of the short-term gains as Vecchio sends it down the inside, following Barneveld down on the full sim racing car. They've got Mirror Esports now directly ahead, starting to pull away from that Cova as well. Got to remember that number 70 is on the comeback charge, looking straight down the inside of 12, but Barneveld covers it off.
Yeah, I'm being told that we should look at Gianni's webcam by Josh Thompson, who drove, of course, with Gianni in round 1, which I can only think means there's a lot of drama. Gianni Vecchio is probably not the happiest man in the world. He has been having to fight an uphill climb, to be fair, so far in this race. And again, I do think he's a contender for Michelin Driver of the Day. Let us know who you think is a contender if you're watching on the VCO Twitch or YouTube channel or on the iRacing Esports Network. You can also chime in on social media. The vote goes live as soon as the checkered flag is open. Kevin Ellis Jr. won in round number 1. I think it was Corentin Gunez in round completely forgetting the last 2 weeks, to be completely fair. Just as busy as it's been for the drivers, it's been busy for us behind the scenes as well. Here's a look on board with Gianni. I still think we're trying to wonder why he needs the handbrake for this sort of a race, but at the very least he's calmed down a little bit if he was a little bit heated before.
I don't know why. Now that you say it's a handbrake, I was like, oh yeah, of course it's a handbrake. I thought honestly, I thought it was part of the rig, and I was like looking, be like, why would you make a part of the rig? What is going on? Yeah, handbrake. That makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. Obviously, it's just part of the setup and isn't going to move. But just in case they want to get ready for either sick donuts later on, got to take victory to really pull those off, or for a hilarious move up into this corner of 12. I mean, why not just keep it there? You never know. I don't think it probably. Let's be honest, it wouldn't work in this car. I don't think there is a handbrake in the. Surely that wouldn't work in the GT3.
No, I don't think they have handbrakes. Having now been able to actually see inside a BMW M4 GT3, I don't think there's actually a handbrake.
Did you get into it?
No. Well, did I tell you about my previous experience with a race car and trying to get into it?
No.
Okay, good. We'll steer away from that one. Only Riley Dickinson ever has to know about what happened. Here comes. Oh, I don't want to think about that one. Gianni Vecchio to the inside of Ryan Barneveld. Not going to be able to squeeze his way on through. They have managed to break the separation to Tumas Tatzler, maybe struggling a little bit more than what we saw from Ascari Rene. But as they work onto that back straightaway, you're just noticing more and more how the sun continues to set. To give you the update on weather conditions, we're down to 28 degrees Celsius on the track. It's 25 degrees in the air, so we're basically almost at the floor of the temperature, but tires are going to be right in their optimal window. Vecchio cuts back to the inside, but will we squeeze to the outside through the S's? They continue to fight, and now contact. You could tell it was coming. You can tell it was brewing, and as much as Gianni Vecchio will put the hand up, both drivers had a role to play in that one.
Yeah, to be fair though, that'll be a again, the first time I saw it, that'll be a pretty big slam dunk to Redline. And you've got to ask the question, why? Why were you fighting? Again, even if I'm Ryan Barneveld right now and I'm sat there thinking, right, okay, Gianni Vecchio will not stop fighting me, just drop back behind. If you don't want to, if you're focused on the time, why would you keep fighting that? I don't understand. I mean, again, issues on both sides in that one, but they made contact that was always going to happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was a bit of fun, but it wasn't the wisest bit of driving that we've seen. Let's take a look. As we can see Vecchio around the outside, he's really not alongside there. He's really not alongside. I get the whole thing of like, you can't just cut across someone, but nah.
Yeah, I think the main thing is why on both sides. I think that's why I said both drivers have a responsibility there, because they kept going. We were watching that for what, 10 laps or so? Like,
yeah. The thing is, they'd already cleared away from the Cova, at which point that was where a lot of the bottleneck was coming when Vecchio and the Cova was fighting. I get that. Why would you continue to fight the red line?
Let's go down to Ewan O'Leary, who I think has heard from both sides about what's happened. And I think there, to be fair, I see both sides, and I'm glad I'm not in race control, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. Both sides of the story, as ever, and they're both blaming each other, of course. Ryan Barneveld was talking not a few moments ago about Gianni Vecchio making these moves or attempting to make these moves, and wondering, and saying this would go a lot quicker if we worked together a little bit. Gianni Vecchio not very pleased at all about being turned into on that very final incident, and he's just about had enough with this race. To us, we've been listening with him from about minute one, and I can't remember him saying anything complimentary about anyone or anything in the whole hour and a half or whatever it has been now. It's been a pretty miserable race for him as well.
Yeah, I still don't think it maybe is the most miserable race that Gianni has ever been in, because I still remember BMW Sim GT Cup for Suzuka last year.
Max Verstappen.
When Max was... Yep, 24 incidents, and then Gianni had one incident to deal with for the rest of the 60 minutes.
Yeah, not a good time, and went a little bit wide into Spoon and disappeared from the race. I do see obviously what's being said there. Yeah, like I said, you can't expect a car on the outside to disappear. Obviously, when it comes outside, then becomes inside. But I'm normally quite harsh on the. Like I say, there's a car there. There needs to be space given, but you've got to think about it logically. If you're Gianni Vecchio, you're never going to get around the outside of turn 10 from that little of an overlap. So if you're on the inside of 9, you then try and get around the outside of 10, which is never going to happen. So again, think wisely. What's the point in wasting that time? If the move's done, the move's done. Be wise. The throttle goes both ways. You know, it doesn't have to just be on. It can also be lifted off as well.
Yeah,
it's just silly from both sides.
Like my line from BMW Sim Live, there's a brake pedal, guys, in the middle. You can use it. Now, what's happened, though, to Thomas Tattler, because he's dropped behind the number 5 Williams Esports Razor car, which does have a 5-second time penalty, by the way, which will be added post-race for contact with the 1:58 full send racing entry. So a little bit more contacts there. I don't think I've ever seen the Ferrari snap like that, despite knowing how nervous that car tends to be because of where the engine is. It's one of the few cars where you naturally overlap the throttle and the brake here on iRacing, and, well, the poor Pure Sims Honda is going to be very glad that this is the older damage model where they won't have been too impacted by that.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, bizarre characteristics there, but I mean, this is the thing, you've got to understand how some of these cars drive. Some of the Porsches, for example, we know they're a bit snappy, loose going through some of the corners. We know they can be a little bit irritating. I mean, if there was one car on this grid that I would drive in the GTD category, it's the BMW M4. Because it's for me, either that or the Merc, they're the most predictable. And in a race like this, as much as it's not a proper endurance racing in that sense, it's not a 24-hour race where you do need that predictability, I'd still take it in a race like this. I know it's effectively a sprint, but nah, this is tough. And when you have a car that reacts like that, yeah, you're asking for trouble.
So getting to an hour and 12 minutes to go. Let's see if we can queue up some hour 1 highlights of what we've seen so far today. Yes, we've had an hour and a half complete, but it's been interesting. Crazy start, settled into a rhythm, and then it kind of imploded, exploded recently. It was an Apex Racing 1 and 2 at the front of the field, though, and they led us across the yard of bricks and down into turn 1. Their sister car running second in touring car alongside with SimRC on that plunge down into turn 1. Impulse got turned around, but through the magic of front wheel drive on the throttle, gets it straightened out. And this was the story, basically, of the opening couple of laps. Redline versus Urano contact. Eventually, it was Vecchio that went around and then had to drop through to the back of the field. What a charge he's been on since then. Some good fighting overall, but unfortunately for IMSA Esports, it was to end in tears. Side by side alongside with the Kova BMW. It was working out of that fun ultimate sector where things really got worse. Then there was this moment where Urano was shoving the full send car off into the CrowdStrike car. The drive-through penalty was handed down there. There was the moment, though, for MSI and Kova that saw MSI retire. More trouble just a handful of laps later for Triton Racing there. 3 wide for touring cars, though. This in the heart of the pack and with plenty of drama. It was around the outside, Mirror Esports looking. At the front, it was relatively calm with SimRC and Apex basically just towing each other around. And at the end of the day, the Apex Racing team taking a fuel advantage into the cycle of pit stops. Urano still fighting their way forward, and then big drama for the championship leader. R8G making a slight miscalculation maybe in traffic. They turned into the Brabham McLaren, retiring them from the race momentarily. R8G would see themselves drop down with a penalty. That was our number 1, and, well, that wasn't even everything, Lewis, that we've seen so far. Maybe not as calm a race as I had remembered.
Yeah, I mean, again, to be fair, that hour, most of those were genuinely in like the first 30, 35 minutes, just because of how crazy that was. It's calmed down a lot since then, whilst we still have had our fair share of dramas and trying to fill a small little highlights bit like that. I mean, you can make any race look absolutely crazy, but yeah, just a little bit of a teaser there as to what has been going on and why you should be watching the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. I know you're all watching it right now, that's why you're here. But, I mean, if you've missed round 1 and 2, it's all there. Go back and watch it because they've both been incredible races. Join us for round 4 as we've got Williams Esports Razor and Kova going side by side. Position picked up by the number 5.
The Tattler trying to work forward, but let's not discount what's just come through on the race control board. Incident under investigation, 98 and 185. Now, was that the moment that Kevin Ellis Jr. was referring to? We'll have to wait and see. SimRC, by the way, have put in an investigation against the sister 97 Apex Racing Team car. Suddenly, the 1 and 2 that we'd been talking about, maybe not as easy a ride as we'd be thinking. Head back down to pit lane to 2 things for you and O'Leary. BS Turner talking about how they've been caught by Alejandro Sanchez, but also what Williams is thinking in this fight with Kova.
Yeah, on your screen right now, Williams were considering a few moments ago whether to let over through and draft off of them. Well, I think we can safely assume what they decided was the best idea now. So they're just going to tuck in behind the Ferrari now and do the sensible thing, which maybe a few teams could have learned from earlier on in this race. Also, B.S. Turner, as you mentioned, getting caught now by Apex Racing Team. And the classic driver discussion about BOP has been going around all day, by the way, not limited to them. I've been hearing it quite a lot, but when don't you hear it in a GTD race?
To be fair, BOP is always going to be a hot button topic. There's another series running today live on RaceSpot TV where they had a BOP update earlier this morning, right before the race itself. Here's a battle with Door Esports down the field with the Arnage McLaren. Nicholas Rubelar fighting Jonas Wanner, who is replacing Moritz Lohner for another weekend. Moritz busy with his Le Mans Virtual Series duties in that Project 1 with Door Esports Porsche 911 RSR. But of course, qualifying went well in the wet for Moritz. Race, maybe not so well, Lewis.
No, instantly. I think it was like first time of the race, second, third lap of the race. Can't even remember off the top of my head, but they got spun around by BS competition. So a little bit of anger that way. I mean, this is the thing is that when you're a teammate, let's say for example you're Jonas Wanner, I mean they're very aware as to what happened yesterday. With some of the teams, so there might even be a little bit of like, oh, BS competition, we're going to fight you a harder today if we get near you. Because as a team, you kind of win and lose as a team. Even if you're not in the car, not around the car, it's still that brand representation. If there is that between each car, then there is a little bit of anguish each way. Although I'm pretty sure it was all dealt with between the teams and they were okay with it at the end. It's one of those things, they're racing hard. You can see at this point they get a little bit blind. That will become a bit worse, by the way, as we ride on board with Jonas Wanner. Going through particularly the final couple of corners, it does get it's basically right in your eye line as you want to sort of get on the brakes coming into T12 particularly, so that might cause a couple of problems later in the race. Shouldn't be too bad though, because it did get blocked a little bit by the grandstands when the sun's that low.
Love delivery, by the way, on that Honda Racing HPD car. Love delivery on the Door Esports one as well. Do love me a bit of asymmetry.
What don't you love? I want to hear the negatives.
Well, I'm very careful about the ones that I don't love. To be fair, most top teams have some pretty good liveries.
These days, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think there's livery in the fields here today that I am not a fan of. I'm trying to think, and I can't come up with one. Look how close Sanchez is, by the way, on the back of your race leader, just at the back of that picture, coming onto the back of that battle that we've been tracking, and Alejandro Sanchez is a flying.
Yeah, this is one that I don't like. No, I'm joking. This is trying to
be careful here.
Trying to irritate Arjuna, who does love this livery. But it is coming under a lot of pressure, as you said, for the race lead. That 98 is caught, obviously, under investigation and whatnot by race control, but still pressure being dealt.
Penalty has come through for the contact with Redline versus BS competition. It's a drive-through for Team Redline. Are you shocked to hear that? As Alejandro Sanchez through the penultimate corner lunges to the inside. Nez does not offer the fight. And it's the Apex Racing team back at the front of the field.
Sit here really, really smug and just say, I did say it was a slam dunk penalty for Redline. They obviously will be pretty unhappy by it, but because obviously they're both pointing blame each way. But again, if you're alongside by less than the front, like if it's literally just the front bumper, I can tell you for sure that ain't an overlap.
Is there?
So yeah, there is damage on the left.
There's damage to the left rear. There's also damage to the bonnet. I am almost 100% sure. Not of the BS Turner car, sorry, of the Apex Racing team entry. Now, yeah, was that the moment that Kevin Ellis, and the left front as well, was this the moment? This is what Kevin Ellis Jr. was referring to. Now, we haven't been given the chance to see it just yet, but clearly it's not slowing them down, is all I was trying to say.
The just yet, by the way, that is Arjuna's cue for a replay of that, of which happened a fair while ago, apparently. So it's literally asking our broadcast director to not only focus on the racing at hand, but also to scramble through plenty of replays to try and find out what has gone on. He is an evil man. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Has he got it already? What a
we got the that's out of the final corner as well. That is an unusual place to have a moment like that. We do have the best producer in the business, by the way, Hugo Luis. Now, I will say that was Sanchez behind the wheel.
Yes.
There was never really a gap there.
No, like I said, the full turn racing's just doing its thing, and it's your responsibility to lap it cleanly. For me, so that's right on board with Alejandro Sanchez. So watch what they're doing. They're always drifting out wide.
Remember, touring cars understeer naturally as well.
And as we've always said, the touring cars, or the lower category, always in motorsport and sim racing, they're always told to stick to the racing line, to do what they were going to do. Now, if you were to speak to the full turn racing team, I guarantee that's probably where they were going to be. If they were just following the racing line, I get potentially leaving a little bit of room, it's what it is. But for me, it's probably Alejandro Sanchez kind of taking his eye off the ball a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I did mention earlier, Kevin Ellis Jr., a veteran of the iRacing Indy 500, has had multiple runs where he's been up there in contention for the victory. And if you're curious about oval racing, maybe you've never really seen it before, but you're a road racing fan, while Indianapolis is tough just by nature of the speed that it carries forward, it's also the oval that maybe most drives like a road course, except perhaps the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Highly recommend Indy Fixed as a way for you to get started with American open wheel racing, because we're here at the racing capital of the world, and after experiencing the joy of being one of 300,000 at the Indy 500 this summer, boy, do I love the fact that iRacing introduced me to that one. Do remember as well, if you're following along with this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, scan the QR code on your screen to stay connected with the latest news, both on social media but behind the scenes as well. And don't forget, we are not far away from kicking off the GTP Evolution, so you should be tracking all the content on the various IMSA channels, because there is plenty of it. And speaking of the GTPs, Lewis, you see what I did here with my perfect segue? BMW will be bringing their LMDH car to iRacing in the upcoming weeks before it hits the track in the real world.
Yeah, it's been one of those things that we've seen a few times on iRacing, where we've had some brand new cars, even as they're being created in real life, sometimes even a little bit before being thrown onto the platform. This is one that I think the entirety of not only the sim racing world, but it's one of those times where the entirety of the motorsport world is super, super excited to see. So I cannot wait to see that car and get my hands on it and instantly throw it into a barrier, because I'm not really good driver anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to be on track anywhere near you. 97, so that's the car that now sees Johan Harth behind the wheel. No further action has come through from the race control team. So that was for the incident with the 176. Plenty of warnings are actually coming down now. We ride on board with Gergo Boldi, two-time esports world touring car champion, as he fights alongside with Full Send and Alex Torres. But here comes Alejandro Sanchez into pit lane. Now, this is a bit earlier than I would have expected. Is this because the damage is hindering them just more than they thought?
Potentially, but also it might be because this is they've taken just about enough fuel. Again, they're timing it for the end of the race. Now, we know they can go slightly over an hour around here, but there being an hour and 1 minute left to go, they'll be leaving the pit lane pretty much with about an hour left to go. This is not too bad. It's a slightly earlier call. I think it's more that they're actually just getting the fuel bang onto the litre, potentially. I don't fully know, though. It might be also because of the damage. We'll have to wait and see. That is a question for Kevin Ellis Jr.
That's a question for you and O'Leary Lorenzo Bonder to see if they can figure out as well. But you're right, they could go to the end. I just don't know if they would have wanted to. The fact that the 97 is not in as well does indicate to me that this is an unplanned stop. They drop out of the top 10 for, I think, probably the first time this season, if we're being totally fair. This Maniti machine hunting down the hardpoint by Delta Sport in 99 that has dropped outside of the top 10, but still in contention for a good top 5 finish if strategy cycles its way forward. The Kova BMW, though, right on the back of Daniel Antunes.
Yeah, try again, pick up those extra little positions before we get into the pit window sequence. Whilst we're with that hour left to go, sometimes if you're getting stuck behind a couple of cars, you might well choose now to come into the pit lane. It's what Johan Harth has done anyway, coming in following a lap after the teammate in that number 98. Alejandro Sanchez already in, and so the teammate jumping in now to make that final stop. I wonder when we'll see the likes of Fildenez, of Beneke, of that lot all into the pit lane.
Oh, soon, sorry, Arnage. Yeah, there they go. And this is at the far chicane as well.
Right.
This is where Corentin impulse around as well. Yeah, two go into one. I think we already know that it was trouble between the two of them. Pit stops increasingly underway, by the way. Tristan Iglesias in the Altus Esports Lamborghini. must just point out what a turnaround for him after a real struggle in round 2. Was a lap down and caused a bit of issues for your leaders. Very impressed by the pace from him today.
No, that's a slam dunk.
I was going to say, you stole the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, there wasn't actually any damage on the front. It might have just been the angle that we were seeing it there. But yeah, whilst that chicane is... no, I was going to say there's an overtaking opportunity. It's not, actually. If there is a car ahead of you, don't go down the inside of it, certainly not with a dive. Love our Nage competitions. Hashtag still want my shirt. Hashtag that was definitely your fault, sorry.
Yeah, to be fair, you're not the one that gave them the nickname. That was Luke Crane, so let's not forget. Phil Dinez.
What did he give them?
Carnage competition. Yeah, Beneke takes that is pretty good, isn't it? Beneke takes the race lead as Phil Dinez across the yard of bricks into pit lane to hand over to, is it Rainer Talvar in this car? Yes, it is. Phil Dinez shares the 96 with Rainer Talvar. It's Bruno Spengler and Ron Barneveld, of course, in the other BMW BS competition machine. They find their box all the way down at the end of pit lane, and now we'll have to really see where they fare compared to the 97 of Johan Hart. After the pit stop cycles, Alejandro Sanchez still leads over his teammate in the net battle, but exactly how will it cycle out with less than an hour to go here at the battle on the bricks with the sun continuing to set? We are about to find out as BS Turner stationary now with Rainer Talvar getting in the car. The driver change here is going to be important to execute well.
Yeah, and like I said, quite a few teams have already done their driver swaps. A few we're still waiting for. BS Turner, obviously, who'll be doing so now. Phil Dinez jumping out of the car after doing the double stint. This is obviously, that would also be some of the reason why you want to get out of the car. You want to hand over to your teammate to do a full stint, and of course those tyres were pretty worn on the BS Turner car. Still surprised they went as long as they did, but alas, into the pit lane, up onto the jacks, onto 4 fresh tyres. And handing over to his teammate, and like I say, now is the time. BMW Team Redline also into the pit lane. So Rainer Talvar leaves the box, and we'll see where they come out. Obviously behind the Apex Racing Team cars, but still, how much further behind?
Yeah, where is Johan Hart? That was really the question I have. Now, he stopped for just 40 seconds. BS Turner are going to work themselves out probably around 20 seconds adrift. Yeah, so I think that's why when we were chatting with Joran O'Leary earlier, he was saying that BS weren't necessarily even too worried about fighting that 97. They were more concerned about just grabbing a spot on the podium. And now we'll track how BMW Team Redline fare in comparison to them, as it will be Beneke out and Holtzman in. And I mean, in terms of lineups, let's not beat around the bush here and say, while Apex, maybe are the form team in that BMW, Redline come into this one with so much confidence after their domination at BMW Sim Live.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing though. With a grid like this, we aren't beating around the bush when we're talking about the GTDs and the touring cars, where genuinely, if I would not be surprised with, let's say in GTD, probably around about 20 of the cars, I wouldn't be surprised if one round, whether obviously this is at the start of the season, if one of the rounds of the season they just absolutely obliterated their way from the front. I wouldn't have been surprised, because that's how strong this field is. And of course, this is one of the cars at the top end. If I were to pick 5 cars that are the absolute strongest in this category, they would be certainly up in that top 5, maybe even first.
It might not. Redline may be in front of BS Turner by the time they get through turn 1. Now, where will the merge place the two of them? There's Redline.
Yeah, way ahead.
There's BS Turner. It's going to confuse me to call them BS Competition. So that's why they were concerned. And now there is a straight fight between 2 BMWs, 3.5 seconds splitting Rainer Talvar and Beneke. And I just think back to Rainer Talvar at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, round 2 of the 2022 BMW Sim GT Cup, where even a 5-second time penalty could not stop Rainer Talvar from winning that race.
Yeah, but got to catch up to one of the absolute fastest in these cars, being Holtzman, so it's going to be a bit of an effort to do so. Kova, meanwhile, trying to make their way past the hardpoint by Delta Sport cars. This is for 6th position in class, 14.5 seconds off of our race lead presently, but still got a lot of pressure on their shoulders. The Kova car presently being driven by Matti Siepela, and then Herbenau behind the wheel of the hardpoint by Delta Sport, so a lot of pressure on their shoulders right now. Obviously, reaching the end of their stint at the moment. That's why they're still out of the pit lane, going the distance when it comes to it. 55 minutes left to go in this race. Realistically, a lot of these teams can go until the 40 minutes to go mark. It's why this grid or this order is going to be a little bit of a mess until probably about 40 minutes left to go in this race.
For the third time today, we'll put out our request for one of those Curver jerseys. Iku Merakala has messaged me saying that he'll send me his personal one. But now I feel a little bit guilty about that one. We ride on board with Matty Ziebler. Big smile actually on the face for the first time that we've ever seen. Sun in his eyes, on to the brakes, and well, nice and tidily past Herbigno in that hard point by Delta Sport 99. You can see the bit of damage to the right front that they've been nursing over the course of the race. Still in with contention for some decent points. Lorenzo Bonder, by the way, has just dropped into our little private chat here behind the scenes of the production saying, wait, Finns can smile? I think the question is, did Cobra drivers can smile? Because we never seen that before. In our VCO pre-show, we had the chance to speak to someone working behind the scenes on this broadcast, but also someone that has real-world experience of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Let's talk to Tyler Maxson once more about life in the sim and real worlds. So we chat once again with Tyler Maxson, the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge driver, but someone who, in the sim racing world, many will know as a broadcast producer, not just here at RaceSpot TV, but behind the scenes at iRacing as well. And I got to ask Tyler, you know, you and I have been friends now for going on 3 years, but what got you into broadcast producing, especially in the sim racing world?
A fluke. Honestly, was just kind of looking for something else to do. Because we were racing, but it was just a lot more big gaps in the schedule and everything like that. And I was spending a ton of time on the sim and honestly just getting a little bit burnt out on actually driving, if I'm honest. And I was just looking for some other stuff to do, and it sounded like a fun thing for me to try my hand at. And yeah, I ended up really enjoying it. And now we're going on close to, yeah, I think I'm finishing up my 3rd year of producing, so going on to the 4th year now.
And you produce a lot of the iRacing World Championship stuff for RaceSpot, but also part of the iRacing broadcast team. But you've not just had that opportunity to help out behind the scenes with iRacing. Recently, you've had the opportunity to help out with the development and the release of the Hyundai Veloster as it joined the iRacing service.
Yeah, that was a really cool process. Honestly, the iRacing guys had it absolutely spot on from the get-go. And it was absolutely just a super easy process. And then, yeah, with the release video as well, got to film that at the Brian Hurd Auto Sports shop and help out with that as well, which was super, super cool and was awesome for iRacing to involve me in that.
Tyler Maxson working on your highlights for today's race as well. Fresh off a trip to SEMA, landed this morning back into the production booth. Good to chat with him once more as he'll shore up his plans for 2023 and announce them on his social media shortly. Here is the 98, by the way, the Apex Racing Team car being passed by Luca Kita. Of course, owes us a pit stop. Going to be a little bit lighter on fuel. Like Lewis mentioned, in about 11 minutes time, we'll have a bit more of a sense on how things will shake up. Of course, only about 5 more minutes left until, if you haven't done a driver change, you must get your driver change done with the minimum drive time being 45 minutes. Down to Ewan O'Leary. Let's talk about Roman Grosjean Esports and how they're fighting in that touring car category.
Yeah, we're very close to the final pit stops now for the guys in touring car. We've Martin van Loozenhood just a little bit disappointed with the Impulse TCR for making him lose a bit of time. But there's more important things happening in GTD. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a nice little fight that we saw, the repeat of BS versus Redline. This time it's BS Turner versus the BMW team Redline, as Reino Talvar has already gotten in front of Patrick Holtzman. I don't think, Lewis, we expected that to happen that quickly.
No, clearly the pace from Reino Talvar, I mean, he is pretty good at that BMW M4, but showing it immediately and thinking, well, as much as that Redline car is pretty quick, I don't really care about it. Obviously, they have done something to jump that BS Turner car. I don't really know what it was. Maybe they took tyres in the first stop and then didn't take tyres in that stop despite having a drive change. I don't fully know as to what happened there. Because I'm pretty sure that BMW Team Redline car should have been behind the BS Turner and then obviously wasn't. So that might be a little bit of an explanation as to where the pace differential is.
Penalty has come down for Arnage Competition in their McLaren for the contact that we saw with Impulse. Slam dunk was the word that Lewis used immediately before we basically had even let the clip finish rolling. So I don't think we're shocked to see that. Like we said, 40 minutes, basically that magic number. Tumas Tatsila back down onto pit lane in the Kova, number 77, with 50 minutes left to run in this race. What a dramatic race it's been so far, but fortunately, knock on wood once again, caution-free, without too much drama at the front of the field. Is BMW BS Competition trying to fight back as they work against the Maniti Lamborghini.
Yeah, every time we see some of these cars, and it's sort of like, oh, what? This has got to be the battle for the back end of the top 10, right? And then they go past, you see there's 22 and 23. Like that, are they? And you're like, yep, no, they are. They're battling for 22nd and 23rd position. Obviously, an up and down day, but as we approach those final pit stops, some have done them. That's why they're out of position. So again, we'll get that better order. Martin van Loozenhoorn, the 188, is that into the pit lane potentially, or has there been an issue? It doesn't say pit, but it is in the pit lane. Don't panic. I was genuinely like, it doesn't say pit on my screen. What's happening? But no, they are just in the pit lane, so a bit of a switch of position because of that and a switch of driver.
It's not Ole Steinbraten this time around, by the way. Joker driver Mario Vartinen will roll as Van Loozenhoorn's partner for this one. Remember, 45 minutes minimum drive time. This driver change perfectly basically timed to meet with that one. Touring cars reduced in capacity to about 66% to get them down from about 90 minutes to an hour in terms of fuel. We're into that final window, by the way. As you see more and more cars coming on down. Vlad Kimichev in the Urano Esports data group will find their way down. This is the Impulse Chris Shorter driven 122 that had the drama straight at the start of the race. Tell you what, to be up in 10th, at least getting some points on the board. With the drama they had to work their way through, it could be a lot worse. Talking of Roman Grosjean Esports as well, Lewis, lots of success and drama for them recently across the sim racing world.
Yeah, had the joy of commentating on Roman Grosjean himself yesterday, who was taking on, of course, in the Le Mans Virtual Series. They were part of his squad. They had a few struggles, but I think he enjoyed himself. I feel he probably might have been a little bit disappointed though with some of the stuff that happened with the post-race antics and whatnot. Don't want to put obviously words into his mouth, of course, but I mean, I certainly would have been happy if I was him. I seem to have taken a bit of a reputation dip within the team in the recent past. But focusing on how things have been here in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, they've actually been doing really, really well. Of course, the 108's taken a second place finish and a victory so far this season. Win last time, that was absolutely fantastic. But I think realistically, we're all aiming for them to have at least one event this week where they don't need to take to Discord or Twitter to voice their opinions. We'll keep our fingers crossed that this might be the one.
Yeah, they are running down in 6th and 8th right now. Of course, Van Loozenhoorn the first to have pitted. So the 188 looking good. Remember, the 108 had that penalty with the incident with Brabham Esports that saw them retire from the race. I say retire from the race. They're still 10 laps down from the leaders, but that's the endurance racing spirit like there. It's what you love to see. If the car is not totally broken, see what points you can salvage out of the race. I mean, Lewis, again, we'll talk about Daytona coming up next, but I think back to both the iRacing Raw before the 24 and also the iRacing Daytona 24. I know there's only so much that you can carry from an event that was run back in January, but two things stand out to me. One, we had touring car chaos in that Raw before the 24. Yeah. Those that watched it will know what we're talking about when it came to the bump drafting. Then when it came to the 24 Hours of Daytona, though, in that GTD category, it was quite wide open, and realistically, it just came down to the drafting games and making sure you're in the right place at the right times, especially important when the race is just 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, again, when as much as the esports world, the landscape, we don't have an off season, right? There are off seasons for each series and whatnot, but there is not an off season in the world of sim racing. Just new series start, whether it is just classified as a winter series or whatnot, or it's just part of its own championship. We don't really have that, but still, events like the Raw before 24 and the Daytona 24 itself, they're generally still regarded as the starting point for the new year, because of course they're like the first majors that you really take on in that new year for a lot of the teams, a lot of the drivers out there, and. Like I say, as much as it is just one of those things, you just kind of carry that momentum off of them. So yeah, I guess they hold their weight just by being that early in the season.
Atty people are down on the pit lane. More and more cars cycling their way through. Just 6 left at the front yet to make their final dive onto pit lane. And as we get to the final 40 minutes of the racing action, let's run you down through some Hour 2 racing highlights. And hopefully I'll be able to talk fast enough to keep up with them this time around. What an opening hour it was. Settled down momentarily, but by no means was it calm. It was that chicane which proved the most difficult with multi-class traffic. It would claim a couple of victims later on. And then we got into the cycle of pit stops and how busy pit lane got. Split calls, some taking driver changes, some taking short stops, and gambling on no safety cars. But there was plenty of ping pong being played as Carl Winkler found out through that chicane. He was not the one that lost out the most, though. Red line embroiled in plenty of fights. First with Kova in their Ferrari going back and forth, but eventually it would turn very physical with Ryan Barneveld in the BS competition machine. The net race leader trying to work through traffic would run himself up into the wall, Alejandro Sanchez, after coming down out of pit lane. 3 wide though. This battle, you knew it was going to end badly, and end badly it did. Vecchio would get a drive-through penalty for spinning around Ryan Barneveld there through the S's. Did show that you can go side by side there with Kova conceding the position. And then a change for the race lead. Apex hit the front before Nicolas Rubelar would turn around the Impulse 122. The most chaotic moment that we had there through the chicane. Still though, it is Sim RC leading in touring car. It was Apex Racing 98 leading in the GTD category. But as you can see right now, it is a battle between the teammates. Johan Harth has closed on Sanchez. It's Frenchman versus Spanish driver right now.
But how did the 97 catch up to his teammate that drastically? Wow, what a sensational bit. They've obviously just switched positions there. But that is a big bit for Johan Harth. They do obviously have to worry about Luke Bennett, who is directly behind them. That is not for position, though, and that Team Redline car that sat directly behind, doing its own little flight, will want to not lose too much time whilst being sat behind. But yeah, there's been a little bit of drama there, and also the 98 getting slowed down by the R8G on the exit of T10. This could cause the opportunity for Luke Bennett to come through and them lose yet more time.
Remember, Luke Bennett is 1 lap down as it scores right now. A bit of drama at the very front of the field. Word in from the paddock is that damage on the 98 is slowing it down a bit, and now I wonder if we are going to see the 97 try and break away. The tow will help out Alejandro Sanchez right now, and I think at the end of the day here, Lewis, whether it's the 98 leading the 97 at the line or the 97 leading the 98, Apex just want the 1 and 2.
Yeah, they want the 1 and 2. They want the 98 to be, yeah, obviously. I was going to say they want the 98 to be a part of that, but obviously they would be. They have only 2 cars in the class. So, again, not the stupidest thing I've ever said in the broadcast, but it's up there. But in this sense, they won't be too worried, because if the 98 is second, it's still scoring good points, still outscoring BS Turner. And so right there, if I were them right now, I'd honestly be telling the 97, don't actually pull away from the 98 right now. Give them a slipstream, help them out, keep that car away from the stress of behind. I understand that's a bit of a risky strategy, but I think you're better off playing the cards that way and trying to secure a 1-2 rather than basically leaving the 98 to struggle for itself and potentially be caught and potentially passed.
In a handful of laps time, we'll get you a live points update when the pit stops have cycled their way through, and how it would shake up if the 97 took the victory, the 98 ran in second, and BS Turner, who have now cleared 3.5 seconds to Patrick Holtzman in the BMW Team Redline car, how it would shake up that fight inside the top 3. So glad you're joining us here for the final 40 minutes of the Battle on the Bricks, round 3 of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Welcome to RaceSpot TV, VCO Esports, and to the iRacing Esports Network. Don't forget, we have 1 more round in 2022 left. On November the 20th, we head to the Daytona International Speedway for our final 2 hour and 40 minutes of action. It's going to be a lot of fun. 2 p.m. Eastern, the green flag will drop. Back down to Ewan O'Leary to discuss the damage on the 98 for the Apex Racing Team. Ewan, they had a significant amount of optional repairs. They didn't take any of them, though, in the last cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, I heard a report from one of them, not sure who said it, but one of them mentioning that there was 2 minutes worth of optional repairs to take. I couldn't grasp whether they did take any of it, but I'm presuming that they did not take any of those seconds. And what was also a bit of a panic for them was the fact that they had their tyres ticked as they pulled into the pit lane, where they obviously didn't need them. That was a bit of a scary moment for them, but thankfully they managed to sort that out before it actually mattered, so they got away with one there. But yeah, not the smoothest pit stop we've ever seen them make, but it's not affecting them quite clearly at the moment.
Daniel Lafuente comes in, and one by one, those final takers onto pit lane are really starting to cycle out the course of this race. And I love this about endurance sprint racing, Lewis. Yes, we've got the threat of safety cars, but if you gamble on strategy and we go green, the storylines converge at the very end of the race.
Oh, always. You know, we're as much as with this kind of stuff, it can get spread out through that midpoint. And you'd always kind of think, well, maybe we won't actually get any battles towards the end of the race. Maybe it will be calm. No, there'll still be something, whether it's for the race lead, whether it's for the podium. We'll have to wait and see on that one, of course, as we head into that final 40-minute period. 2 hours down in this race. We've still got a few extra pit stops to tick off. I don't think anyone's breaching those driver minimum and maximum driver times. At the moment, I think everyone's been all right with this. It's not that hard, let's be honest. The minimum is 40 minutes. You must complete 40 minutes in the car. The maximum, weirdly enough, is 2 hours. Based on that, you get within that region and we are all okay. But I think a couple of teams might have pulled that one as close as possible.
Yeah, I think they have to. We'll see post-race. That's the kind of thing that we saw post-race rather than during the race itself. But we will see. Here's a battle in touring car, by the way. Semper Racing, a little bit easier to say the name. Oh, rather, that's Mirror Esports. The livery's got me confused. Attila Bushi behind the wheel of the Mirror Esports car. I will say, it's now Yaroslav Sabula behind the wheel of the Semper Racing car that's coming down onto pit lane. I think you can say that name, Lewis, if you can't say Raphael Joust.
Which name? Which name?
Raphael Joust.
Raphael Joust?
Yeah, we're trying.
We can try. We can try. I just tend to avoid it. What was the one that you messed up?
Oh, I don't even want to think about that. Kuba Kowalski. Something like that. I know which one you're talking about because I'm going to be thinking about that when I go to sleep tonight, about how badly I did butcher that. By the way, touring car leader is in as Kieran Harrison brings SimRC to pit lane, and Lewis, they are looking to take 2 wins here on a Sunday after Karin Tengune has already driven in this car here today, but has just come off taking a victory in another race that just wrapped up a handful of minutes ago.
Well, that was a simple point that was easily made. Well done. Thank you, Arjuna, for completely confusing the audience. Trying to take a couple of wins in the single day. Kieran Harrison obviously has been driving the previous stint, will take it to the checkered flag, leaves the pit lane. Obviously, we'll drop down now to 4th position. The 108, the 116 and the 199 all ahead. Expected to come into the pit lane fairly soon. 12 seconds ahead of Vartan, of course, the R8G car. They're battling over the top end of this. Herbinau will stay out in the hard point by Delta Sport car in the GTD category and will take over the race lead, whilst we've got Lewis Naja and Van Putten all into the pit lane along with Luca Kita. There is the Team 75 SimRC by Bernard car in the pit lane.
So this is that final cycle. It is now just hardpoint onto lap 42 of their stint, along with Door Esports, who do run behind the Apex Duo, by the way. So we're still waiting for them to come to pit lane. You were questioning the wisdom of allowing Johan Harth to break away. We haven't seen that happen just yet, but the gap is up to 1.7 seconds, and now well and truly out of drafting range. 2 Mercedes battling side by side, and Williams Esports Razor gives a bit of a shove to Vlad Kimichev of the Urano Esports Data Group car.
Yeah, getting some of the fisticuffs out, expecting these to potentially be taken on the touring car category if they keep that kind of racing up. Just a little bit of a touch going through the I was going to say the penultimate corner, but it was just before that. T12 into T13, the third to last and then second to last corners. All of the touring cars, by the way, into the pit lane. Garbolero, Mandanak and McFarlane all in, allowing the race lead to switch back over to SimRC. They're looking very, very strong, and to be quite honest, unbeatable.
Here comes hardpoint by Delta Sport and Christophe Herbigno. It will be the Apex Racing team that regains the 1 and 2 at the front of the field. However, now it is Johan Harth that will lead Alejandro Sanchez across the line with a 97 in front of the 98. As it has cycled around right now, 3rd spot on the podium is going the way of Mercedes-AMG. Team Williams Esports, Luis Najer, has come out of pit lane after a 27-second stop. 3 seconds in front of Reino Talvar, and now Talvar has got to go hunting with 35 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, which to be fair can be a bit fun, but like I say, Alejandro Sanchez is incredibly fast, and whilst there is damage on that car, potentially getting used to that damage, building themselves back into it. I mean, to be fair, there was part of me when I saw the 98 getting past, I was sort of like, oh, well, yeah, but the second driver might be a bit slower. And I was like, oh, yeah, the second driver is Alejandro Sanchez, so I doubt that. Just obviously the damage on that car. There are the two Apex Racing Team cars leading 1 and 2 in the GTD category. A bit of heart-in-mouth moment, but I think everything should realistically be all right. The pace seems okay in the 98. I think the damage is making it harder to get through traffic more than anything else.
Interesting call that Sean Campbell has come out of the pit lane behind the wheel of the hardpoint by Delta Sport 99 Porsche 911 GT3R without changing tyres. I would have assumed that you would have left Christophe Herbigno into the car, even though I do think Sean Campbell likely, just based on the speed that we've seen from him recently on RaceSpot TV. Sorry, Christophe. But Sean has just been on another level the last handful of months. Just a bit surprised you would have planned it this way around to leave him on worn rubber to the very end of the race. We do have an interview to come down in a couple of moments' time. We'll chat with Corentin Gunes about what he's thought about the traffic so far. But, I mean, we have the pit cycle basically in the books with the exception of Door Esports, Lewis. And, I mean, not many shocks, I mean, other than the 55 for Williams Esports being up there in the podium and comfortably on the podium spots right now.
Yeah, but again, this could be the tyre strategies and whatnot. BS10, like I say, will be on the hunt. Rainer Talvar behind the wheel. We're trying to focus on getting that one back. Slightly different strategies being run by quite a few teams here when they come to when they're taking the tyres, how they're dealing with the tyres, whether they're doing the double stint right at the start, whether they're doing it at the end. All those kind of strategy elements that have been thrown up into the air. I'd suspect that the 96 should be able to catch up to the 55. So I think we're still in for a bit of a podium battle once that Dürr Esports car comes into the pit lane, but they are leaving it quite low. We do think they can do about an hour and 5 minutes roughly around here, so we expect to see them come in the next 2 and a bit minutes.
Back down to Ewan O'Leary for a second because he's been listening in behind the radios for the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports 55. And Ewan, what are they thinking about this next 32 minutes to the end?
Well, Lewis Nuzzi was commenting just how difficult that car is to drive at the moment. They avoided tyres, of course. He's sliding around all over the place. They're certainly expecting a challenge before the end of this race, not least because of some of the team names behind as well, of course, with the likes of BS Turner and Redline are there as well. But half of the battle for him, really, by the sounds of it, is just between himself and the car.
So, as Door Esports come on in, it does promote that 58 officially onto the podium, and now let's track the gap between them. 3.4 at the line for Luis Nager. What can Rainer Talvar do to hunt him down in the galloping zebra behind? Now, where will we see touring car action play itself out, with SimRC leading by 15 and a bit seconds over R8G's 188 that runs with Gaio Valero right behind. Let's head on down to Corentin Gunes standing by in SimRC land. And Corentin, we heard that you had a interesting experience with the traffic through that chicane. How's it been for you behind the wheel as you watch on now to the checkered flag?
Yeah, it was a bit difficult to manage the traffic. The speed difference is just huge, so it's difficult to expect how it's gonna go. But yeah, it went quite okay, to be honest. We just had a small incident with one of the Apex cars, but apart from that, it's a bit scary sometimes, but we cannot really complain at the moment. It's going away. Pace looks good. The strategy is good, so yeah, not too bad at the moment.
You're coming off already one victory today in a 6-hour race. How hard is it for you to try and practice and prepare for 2 big races on the very same day and trying to jump back and forth across the 2 of them?
Yeah, it's not easy because I had the WTCS earlier this week as well with the Veloster, so yeah, it was a bit difficult to manage this week, but yeah, it's going quite okay, I would say, with the win today with the Civic. So yeah, the good thing is that we're used to this car as well, so yeah, it makes the job a bit easier, but yeah, I'm a bit exhausted at the moment, so yeah, I'm happy that Karen is doing a great job with the double stint now.
Well, you've got 30 minutes to watch and then you can go off and get some rest. Congratulations on what's been a good weekend so far, Corentin. And
thanks a lot.
Maybe we'll chat with you post-race. That was Corentin Gunes behind the wheel. You could tell he was a little bit tired as well. 3 different cars across, well, Thursday and then now Sunday. It's a difficult proposition, and 3 very different tracks as well.
I know it's obviously not the same, but maybe he's getting ready for a bit of a hit at the VCO Pro Sim Infinity. You know, getting used to jumping in between different cars. Potentially something like that. I don't know. But either way, did an incredible job earlier. I will say in the touring car category, there is a bit of a tight fight between the 199 and the 188. Apex Racing Team recently getting up into second spot, now pulling away by 1.5 seconds. The RAG struggling just a touch.
Carbon Simsport getting lapped in this battle for 10th position. Hardpoint by Delta Sport running in front of Pure Sims, and then the Kova BMW throws the look to the inside through the penultimate part of the S's and is able to make it work. But you can tell that they're going to push a little bit more in this phase now as they dive their way through the traffic, and going caution free, it has very much splintered up the pack. Down the inside looks the big burly BMW. You have to leave space for the Lamborghini, and Pure Sims trying to hold on.
Yeah, that's a bit dicey, squeezing just on the exit of the corner, giving just about enough room. That is how you give room, going side by side through multiple corners and not attracting the eye of race control. Brilliant stuff between Kova and Pure Sims there, but almost a little bit of drama as they were trying to clear their way past the CrowdStrike car on the start-finish straight on the race down towards that first corner. Kova dropping back the spot, but looking to attack already down into that first corner. They are going to send it in, the battle for 11th spot as they head down through that first couple of apex, but it's still going to be the Pure Sims hanging on. But there's going to be the dive once again. Wow, still keeping alongside. Was not expecting that, to be honest.
And now do the touring car traffic play a part with the Arnage Hyundai blocking the road into the chicane. It will allow Kova to get it done and dusted, and now Pure Sims has to cut across the line of the Carbon car that is 1 lap down. Plenty of fighting this for 10th position. Of course, we're still tracking that battle up for 5th spot, where Patrick Holtzman in the BMW Team Redline entry is starting to come under fire from Bram Van Putten as Team 75, Bernard by SimRC, come on strong in their Porsche as the sun continues to set. Track temperature hasn't really gone down too much yet, Lewis. It is 27 degrees Celsius as opposed to the 28 degrees Celsius when we last checked in. However, the main difference is now going to be just the sight lines and the setting sun changing how the racetrack looks.
Yeah, like I say, when it comes to how they're going to be dealing with the Michelin tyres at the moment, it's not going to make too much of a difference from this point on. Should be okay. Bram Van Putten, though, down the inside of Patrick Holtzman to take over a very, very good top 5 in the Team 75 Bernard by SimRC car at the moment. They got the wrong way around earlier on, so don't get me wrong, I did note that. Apologies to the SimRC boys, but it's not going to make too much of a difference on that. It'll drop maybe a degree, maybe 2 before the end of the race, but like I say, from now on, the difficulty is visibility.
Do you remember that Team 75 car ran up towards the front in round number 1 by virtue of strategy in the early portions? They were one of those that went quite light in terms of the fuel added to their car. Ended up finishing the race in 9th. Round 2 not so well for them. Nice to see them back fighting up at the front. So, see if we can check in with Ewan O'Leary. He has been extremely busy the last handful of moments, but as we watch a little bit of battle between Pure Sims and Kova once again, as Kova will hold on for the time being. But Ewan O'Leary, let's talk a little bit about touring cars as R8G starting to struggle against Apex and that 199 starting to run away.
Yeah, not only losing positions at that second place to Gareth Valera, but also just losing tyre grip and losing pace now as well. I was just listening in there to Vattini just complaining a lot about the tyres and the grip that car was giving to him at the moment. Not a lot of grip in that car at the minute, so losing a lot of time. And will be and they're just giving him some target lap time for now, just to try and conserve third, which they believe they still can do. We're also doing a couple of calculations about the other RAG car, TCR, by the way, with SimRC winning this race currently, or leading this race, I should say. For them to hold on to their lead, they need to finish second in the race for them to hold on to their championship lead. That obviously is not going to happen by the looks of things at this stage. So they're just trying to limit the damage. It's a few seconds of a gap up to the 133 that they really need to gain an extra 10 points.
See how it plays out in the closing stages here. Earlier in our VCO pre-show, we talked about how Michelin and esports goes hand in hand. We wanted to talk more about how racing and virtual racing in general plays a part in Michelin's global brand. We chat once more with James Dimmock, and we want to continue about how
Michelin and esports goes hand in hand, and James, we talked a little bit earlier about how Michelin's had a deep history with sim racing and esports, but exactly how does sim racing tie in to Michelin's core objectives?
Yeah, tough question. How does it tie into our core objectives? I think really to understand the answer to that, you need to think about who we are as Michelin. You might think immediately Michelin, the tyre company, but we're more than that. We're a mobility provider. We're about motion. We're about bringing a way for you in your life to move forward, to be closer to your loved ones. When you look across the board of our group, what we supply is well above and beyond just the car tyres. When we talk cars and motorsport and aircraft, even the subway, the metro trains in Paris running on Michelin tyres, the aircraft you might use to fly there. We've got so many touch points of the Michelin group, and for us, this is an opportunity to share those with people and to share passionately and openly about who we are so that you can understand more about us.
What benefits has Michelin been able to see from its direct collaborations over the years here in esports?
I think the first thing there, in terms of collaboration in esports, the first thing that it's given us super access to is the fan base, everyone out there. It's given us that opportunity to share what we're about, and also to show how we can bring our real-life motorsport expertise into the virtual world in any way that's needed by our partners as well. And it's super important to note that it isn't all about simulating the perfectly realistic tyre, but it can be bringing tyre strategy, it can be bringing tyre conversation, and more importantly, it can be about bringing whatever level of reality we want to digital motorsport from the real world.
And to your point, how important is the entirety of racing rather than just this top level of digital motorsports important in Michelin's focus in esports?
Because at the end of the day, we're all gamers. Some of us might be at the top end of the stream. We might be competing in something as incredible as this event. And some of us might be picking up a mobile phone in a break at work or in a break whilst waiting for a buzz, And we have everything in between there as well. As a community, gamers globally, it's massive. And that crossover with that car enthusiast community, it's a passionate group of individuals with that love of cars that crosses over into the love of games. And that's going to, we all appreciate that in different ways. Not everyone has space or time for a sim rig at home. It depends how we want to engage with that. And for us at Michelin, it's about being part of where people want to be. I think that's really kind of important for us.
Thank you so much to James for his time. Really good to chat with him and learn a little bit more about how Michelin and esports goes hand in hand, and of course not just about hardcore sim racing at the top level like we're doing here. Sun continues to set. We continue to watch the fight for 10 as they run right now. It is Matti Siepel who has managed to get his way in front of the hardpoint by Delta Sport car. I did question the wisdom as to Sean Campbell taking over the drive with 40 minutes left to go on a fresh set of tires, but still runs in 11th with Spencer Kostowicz in the Pure Sims number 16 behind them. I mean, other than this though, Lewis, there are still plenty of action up and down through the field. I mean, I said earlier it's broken up, but like you see here, there's some battle packs working its way through traffic.
Yeah, there still will be some pretty tight fights going on through this race. This is the one between the 7th position between Urano, of course, the Williams Esports Razor car. We did catch up with Lafuente's teammate of Carl Janssen earlier on. We'll now try and pick up a position you can see there. As soon as he has looked to the inside of that Urano car being driven by Vlad Kimachev, the 91 just lifted straight out.
Don't forget the 5 does have that 5-second time penalty at the end of the race that will get added. So as it runs right now, if the race was to finish, they would not finish in 7th. They would likely be down in 9th position. So it's not the worst penalty in the world, but I think one thing that we were kind of wondering about, Lewis, was after 2 safety cars at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, what the prospects of a safety car here were going to be. Now, this track may be less tight than Laguna Seca apart from its pitch straight, but we've had a couple of nervy moments. But again, we're not here to throw safety cars to add drama. We're here to have safety cars that make sense. And so far today, again, with 20 minutes to go, we've had nothing major. It's, knock on wood, been quite a great race so far.
Oh yeah, we're not the type of series to throw a caution because there's a crisp packet on the track. We'll throw it if there's an actual incident, at which point there's not been anything crazy when it comes to that, which, to be fair, was the expected thing. I did say it when we were racing, even before we went racing, rather, at Laguna Seca, that we would either see a safety car at Laguna Seca or we wouldn't see one all season. My point being is that Laguna Seca was always the one where I was looking at being like, that's definitely, this is full course yellow territory, and we got 2 of them. This track here, Indianapolis and Daytona, not I genuinely don't see one. I mean, I certainly don't see one in the next 20 minutes, but considering how the driving's been today, it's been all right. I just don't see one at Daytona, purely based on the fact that there is so much runoff through. I just don't see one being required. And like we've said, if it isn't required, it won't be called.
Yep, no, and it goes hand in hand with the rule about drivers not being allowed to take that automatic tow/reset to pit lane without the race control permission. So, like Lewis says, when it is required, it will be triggered. Looks as though we are on course to finish the third race without too much drama. On board with Carbon SimSport. This is the battle of the poles that I was kind of excited about to see how it would go. It's Carbon SimSport up against Triton Racing, and the unfortunate reality is they are in this McLaren MP4-12C, which, while some teams have gotten some speed out of it, I mean, for example, you've got some cars that have fought inside of the top 15. The car is somewhat showing its age a little bit, Lewis, now, and yeah, they kind of expected to be in a class of their own.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing, by the way, the getting in and out of, well, trying to get in and out of GT3s, and I said there was a video of me trying to get in and out of one. It wasn't an MP4-12C, but it was a 650S, which I did try and climb behind. I'm pretty sure it was, I feel it might have been Ewan earlier. I think it was probably more Cameron and Roger. I think Ewan was probably there to watch me try and climb in and out of it, and I can tell you it was not a pleasant experience for anyone watching alongside, because any racing driver who tries to get out of a GT3 hands first, you can tell it's gone wrong, and that was me. It is a shame, obviously, with the MP4-12C that we've got it. I'd love to see a more modern McLaren, more modern, obviously been 720. But to be fair, I do quite like myself a bit of the MP4-12C, and every time we kind of see it out there, I'm like, yeah, it does look quite good. And also, it's
fire,
isn't it?
Yeah. As soon as I see the fire, just get the smile on my face like I'm a child again watching motorsports. It's very much like that. Talked about Joker drivers over the course of this race. I don't think we've really mentioned how that works. 4 rounds of the championship, and teams were required to nominate 2 full-season drivers. However, to accommodate for the realities of life, drivers are allowed, or teams rather, are allowed 2 replacements over the course of the season. And so it is Daniel Ferguson, the Pure Sims team manager, who steps out of this number 16 Pure Sims GTD entry, and so instead Spencer will be taking over. Couple of comments from our production team, Lewis, but you can see just how yellow the sun is getting. We're going to be racing almost into the darkness, hopefully not into complete pitch black, though, excuse me.
Nice. But yeah, no, I mean, it is at the point where in the distance it is extremely bright on the horizon as the sun is dipping down very slowly down below the horizon. It's not what we're all getting used to in the Northern Hemisphere, where it's sort of like, oh, the sun's dipped, it's gone. It's gone. Obviously, yeah, it still sets pretty slowly. I don't think it'll be dark by the time we finish the race, but it'll certainly be heading towards that. But the sky is a very ominous orange at the moment, with the race still going on at Indianapolis.
And the temperature really hasn't changed too much in terms of track temperature since we last talked. That is a lot of yellow.
That is the camera community will classify as an overexposed shot, I think, of the sky. That we lost all of the detail, but yes, it is. It was bright. Let's just say that. But again, all the drivers do kind of have to deal with it to their own degree. It's not blinding too much so, because the sun itself is dipped below the grandstand, the important bit. Really, kind of like, it's almost like having some nice sunglasses on, realistically. But the sky itself is still bright enough to cause some form of distraction.
R8G in the 108, the championship leading car, has fought its way up to 6th and is now behind CrowdStrike's 133, fighting with Dominic Gatermeyer. And remember, with SimRC leading this race, Lewis, it is crucial that Mandonat gets every point that he can, and 5th is the best that he's hoping for.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit more if there's some cheeky drama later on. But there is the 108 R8G Esports car, after just having made up that position and running up the order. Like I said, Valentin Mandonat behind the wheel right now. Obviously, traffic all coming through, looking very scary indeed. But like I say, sure, it might only be one extra spot, one extra position. Maybe it's even only, I don't remember how many points it is, but it's not very many points per game. But all of the points are very, very important. They're in a tight fight with the 176 in that championship race, and this will make it incredibly close going into the final race of the season.
Yep, it will, and what a showdown that is going to be. You don't think there's going to be a safety car? I get this nervy sense that maybe there will be drama with some multi-class shenanigans in traffic. Final 15 minutes of the race. Let's go down to Ewan O'Leary in pit lane, listening into the CrowdStrike Touring Car 133 entry. There's a little bit of drama in that battle for fifth, Ewan, and there's a little bit of miscommunication and disagreement about whose responsibility it really was.
Yeah, there was a pass there made by Godemir there on Riccardo Ferreira. Scott Michaels behind the scenes, the other driver who started this race for that car, was saying to his teammate to give that position back because it wasn't a fair overtake, or not because it wasn't a fair overtake, but Scott Michaels believed that it would have been called by race control and he was trying to avoid the penalty. But Dominic there was not interested at all in that and didn't want to give the position back at all, and so has not done that, especially now because Riccardo Ferreira has lost that place to R8G as well. So we'll keep an eye on the race control there with regards to that one, whether there's going to be a penalty there or not. This is the incident he was talking about. We can decide for ourselves who's in the right.
Though it's just a bit of door banging there, to be honest. Racing incident at first glance.
I don't think that's that bad. No, like I say, they had a car down the inside. It's not ideal, but like I say, I think it's a racing incident, if anything. I don't know.
I agree. Basically summed that up. Side by side, BMW BS competition and Door Esports, BMW versus Lamborghini. Now behind the wheel of the Zebra, it's Bruno Spengler, the 2020 IMSA iRacing Pro Series champion, who got an almighty wiggle working out of the S's, and now the Lamborghini fires it back down the inside. This is the fight for 16th position, not where we expected BMW Team BS competition to be, given the pace that we've seen for them in the first two races. But Bruno Spengler shows that real-world offensive ability and slides his way on forward for now.
Yeah, brilliant attempt, and obviously trying to keep the wheels the correct way when it comes to facing that racetrack. The Michelin tyres want to keep in contact with the racetrack, not the sky. And Bruno Spengler would have earned that one the last round that we went racing, but like you said, going side by side in this battle with Door Esports. Got the inside line coming down to that first corner, commitment on the brakes. They've got a bit of lap traffic as well ahead in that Semper Racing. Of course, Hyundai Elantra in the touring car category that they're going to have to navigate, but the 11 gets back ahead of this BS competition car that we're presently riding on board with.
Great fight, great fight. Do remember, let us know your candidate for Michelin Driver of the Day. Now, Door Esports, have they pinched themselves on the run through the chicane? I don't think Bruno Spengler thinks he's got enough top-end speed to get on through. And I have kind of noticed, I don't really have any numbers to back this up, but I don't think Bruno Spengler has got the most speed. What's happened in touring cars?
Yeah,
Gator Myers off the road and down the timing tower.
I just saw, I didn't see what it was for, but it was coming down into T10. There was certainly a moment. I think it might have been lap traffic, potentially Triton. They were around them in that Triton carbon simple battle towards the back end of GTD that's got into the rear end. And like you say, let's take a look now. With the CrowdStrike car directly ahead, there is the Triton car straight into the rear end. And you know what I'm going to say?
Slam dunk.
It's a slam dunk. That's an easy penalty.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get more obvious than that, in my opinion, with 10 minutes left to go or so. Here's still the Lamborghini and the BMW going back and forth. I mean, these two want to put on a show to the end. Remember, again, 16th position. We'll see if we can get some words down from pit lane in the closing stages. These guys fighting all the way to the wall, but meanwhile, further up in the field, 6th and 7th starting to fight. Patrick Holtzman and Daniel Lafuente have started to fight. I see Lafuente has lost a whole bunch of time. Bruno Spengler trying to lean on the Lamborghini once more.
Yeah, this is brilliant stuff. Jonas Spanner doing whatever he can to hang on to the spot, but Bruno Spengler doing whatever he can to take it. A brilliant battle between the two. And it looks, I agree, I think this has got another 11 minutes left in it, lads. Keep it up. Let's see what we can get. I mean, again, regardless, they're having a bit of fun here. I know, obviously, sometimes as we look at Bruno Spengler, it's not like he's having that much fun, but trust me, he is. That is a mighty send. Maybe a little bit too much. The up and under being sent from the Door Esports car. He's got the outside, and we've seen a couple of incidents here, but beautiful space given. That is how it's done.
Yeah, this is a bit of a racing clinic going on. And just an FYI, I do think Daniel Lafuente was pushed off the track in that fight with BMW Team Redline. So, again, fighting all over the shop as we head into those final 10 minutes, and the sun continues to set. Hugo Luis just pointed out as well that don't forget, if you're new to sim racing and you want to get started on your journey, don't forget the BMW Sim Academy, hosted by the one and only Bruno Spengler, but joined by Niels Naujoks from BS Competition, as well as Maximilian Benecke from Team Redline, a useful way for newer drivers to be able to work their way forward. Now, Lafuente is back in front of Holtman. I get the sense that this is redressing the position so that they can now fight for 10 more minutes.
I actually don't think it was. I think he got caught out by traffic drastically through the chicane. There might have been a bit of that of like, oh, fine, if you're there, let me go. Because there was a little bit of space between them. Then they got caught out of traffic. Let's take a look. This is what I mean. So they've got full send racing directly ahead, and they had to lift quite a lot through the chicane. And that's where, again, Lafuente was closing in. I think, as I said, by this point, might have just been like, okay, right, if that move wasn't great, now you've got the opportunity, just go for it. Brakes early, allows to go through. So yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get on that one. And then round two, try not to irritate them too much.
I'm just saying, maybe Gianni Vecchio and Ryan Barneveld could have learned a little bit from that one. Although the gap has actually grown a little bit as they come across the line and work into turn one. Quick rundown then as we head into this final 10 minutes. It's Apex 1 and 2, but it's the 97 that leads the 98. Alejandro Sanchez with the damage, starting to slip backwards in the field, but still clear of Luis Nager, who runs in third, as here's the fight between Kova and the Urano Data Group entry, or rather that's the Mercedes-AMG entry, excuse me, the number 90. It's Tumas Tasla versus Luca Kita. These drivers fighting for 13th spot.
Yeah, not what we would have expected them to go fighting, if I'm honest. We expect a lot out of these two, but a look trying to get offline at the moment. Tumas Tasla on the rear end of Kitu was a little bit tight going through the chicane and is now holding that defensive line up towards 7. Gets to the outside in the Ferrari. That Kova car, the 77, trying to send it all the way around, but is not going to do so. This is going to have to wait potentially either into 12 or onto the start-finish straight once again.
Remember, Tatala was running that Ferrari up inside the top 6 at the start. We were super impressed by its pace in one-lap mode, but slightly unraveling since then. Might also have a fight, by the way, for 3rd spot on track as Luis Nager comes under fire from Rainer Talval. Let's see if we can talk a little bit about points as it sits right now. 7.5 minutes to go, so just a handful of laps. This is GTD, and you'll see the gap has come down. At one point we were talking about, what, a 250-point advantage for that 98 machine, but it will be an Apex 1 and 2, a gap down to 204 points with 385 total on offer for sweeping the weekend.
Yeah, victory, of course, in this race. Should it finish the way it is, the 97 would move up into that 2nd spot by just 3 points, which, trust me, on this point score is absolutely nothing. Obviously moving up a couple of spots in this. Unfortunately, a bit of an issue in this race down in 13th for the Mercedes-AMG Urano car. They will be losing out significantly on the points, going from 3rd to 4th and almost having a bit of a large gap up there, almost too large. Certainly not too large when it comes to the mathematical possibility, but almost too large from the point of it being like, well, that's a pretty big gap, to be perfectly honest. BS Turner losing out in that 2nd spot, but still just keeping within contention and, importantly, closing in on 3rd, which they might very well need in the next 6.5 minutes if they have aspirations of the title.
Yeah, I mean, 3rd would get them 10 more points. Oh, no, excuse me, I'd be giving them even more, 20 more points if I remember off the top of my head. So would close a little bit more, but still the 98 would be in control. Plenty of fighting further down. Remember, these drivers fighting for their prize money as well. Talk about touring cars very quickly then, as still Urano and Kova close on hardpoint by Delta Sport. Sean Campbell really struggling on the tires right now, has been dropped by Pure Sims in front to the tune of 7 full seconds. Look how close it is between SimRC and RHE, and one wonders for Apex Racing Team what they can do heading into Daytona.
Yeah, like I say, very, very tight margins. Just 45 points between the top two as we see this fight continue between Kova and Urano. Kova to the outside, bit of contact as Tumas Tasla gets around the outside of Luca Kita. But yeah, both of our championships incredibly tight in the touring cars. A little bit more of a stronger position for Apex in the GTD category. Of course, heading into our season finale in a couple of weeks' time. That touring car, I mean, that's going to be an incredible battle in the touring car category, seeing which way it's going to swing when we head to the Daytona International Speedway in that couple of weeks' time. But for right now, things are looking really good for Apex. Very, very strong. Going to go potentially into that with a 1-2, dependent on what BS Turner can do about that battle for 3rd.
Yeah, and imagine if they could it's an outside chance, I'd say right now, for them to grab the championship in touring car. But if they could grab both after winning the first race of IMSA's Virtual Revolution, you couldn't ask for much more in this championship, that is for sure. 5 minutes left to go in this race. Still watching this fight between the Urano and the Kova machine. Other fights to talk about. Holtzman has lost a whole bunch of speed. He's trying to defend from Carlos Fenalosa. As you can see on the run into turn one, Altus in that Lamborghini will slide down the inside, and Carlos Fenalosa will rip 7th away from BMW Team Redline.
Yeah, just got to say, it's. I think there was a little bit of contact into the first corner between Kova. Just as Matty Sieper, I think, got into the rear end of Vlad Kimichev ever so slightly into that first corner. So there's been a bit of a feisty battle that is going to continue for that ninth position. You actually see them in the background there, just coming around separated by nothing. There are a few battles happening. The defensive line is being taken by the Mercedes-AMG Team Urano Esports car. Vlad Kimichev holding on to it and taking, once again, a very, very defensive line. Potentially too defensive. Opens up for an opportunity to get around the outside. Space given between the two. No penalty needed on this occasion, because 7 is making its way up inside I was going to say inside the top 10, but they're making up tonight.
It's been a difficult day for Kova for sure, but they are fighting back, and again, endurance spirit being shown. Final 3 minutes and 40 seconds, your final opportunity to chime in for Michelin Driver of the Day. Then remember, once the checkered flag has flown, head over to twitter.com/VCO Esports to vote for your Michelin Driver of the Day. There's a couple of strong candidates here. Maybe Kieran Harrison in the Sim RC 176. Maybe Gunez as well from that camp. Johan Harth you put forward as well. Luis Nager in the 55. And speaking of the 55, as the battle for third closes within a second as Pure Sims gets down the inside of Urano on that run down into turn number 1, they will continue to fight side by side as, whoa, the Lamborghini loops it around by himself. And now has got to hope that he can at least hold on to 11th position and hope he doesn't rejoin unsafely.
I've just seen another thing. I was going to say this one, Sean Campbell lost out. He was battling. By the way, I didn't even notice this. The Urano and the Kovas, both the Uranos and both the Kovas were fighting in different battles, and it was very confusing.
BS Turner's to third. Something's happened to Luis Nager. Not sure exactly what. It's kicking off in the final laps. Bit of air between the two of them there, but exactly what is going on. You think tires on the Mercedes number 55. Let's check in though with Sean Campbell and Hardpoint.
And it's tires again. Yeah, a lot of these drivers, remember, they're doing double stints at the moment, and the track temperature's cooled significantly. The way they've been reacting. This is the move from the 96 straight down the inside, a little bit of a touch of the curb, pushing out. Ooh, Ragnar Talvar into Naja. That's not pretty.
So race control might actually have stuff to look at in these closing couple of laps. Here's your race leader though, down the back straightaway and about to, I think, start the final lap, although we may get an extra one. It is all dependent on how long it takes for Johan Harth to reach the line from here. Without a doubt, Ewan O'Leary says there will be stuff for race control to take a look at. Sounds like teams are already heading to the incident report form, but I mean, Lewis, tires with a gamble that we talked about at the start. Preserving your Michelin tires, some tried. The gamble has not paid off.
Yeah, it's the talk of the town. It always has been for the previous 2 races at Road Atlanta and Laguna Seca. It continues to be the talk of the town right now. 1 minute and 30 seconds left to go in this race. It's going to be very tight for it, but if they continue on at full speed, at full chat...
no, it should be the final lap.
It should be the final lap. It should absolutely be the final lap. I was going to say that it might be the penultimate, but no, definitely should be the final one. But like I say, it is the gamble. It is the risk that a lot of teams have taken, and some of them have pushed these Michelin tyres a little bit too far.
Head down to Ewan O'Leary for the final time, and very, very quickly, because BS Turner is trying to decide what they should do on the final lap, Ewan, with regard to the incident in the battle for third.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually they're pretty silent, really, on the pit radio, the two of them, Fildenes and Rainer Talvar, but they are wondering whether to give the position back. Williams Esports are not happy at all. They've already protested it within seconds of it happening, indeed, that they were at race control protesting that incident. They're very eager to see that one through because they feel as if they've had their hearts broken here and they've had it stolen away from them.
They fought all the way to the very end, and it was the gamble that put them in front on track. What will race control determine at the conclusion of their review? We came into this round of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship with half the season in the books and one dominant team. It was the Apex Racing team. However, it was the 98
100% perfect in terms of victory. And while it will be Apex at the top once more, a bit of drama today for Alejandro Sanchez and for Kevin Ellis Jr. Instead, it's Johan Harth and Jamie Fluke once again from Corby celebrating victory in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Johan Harth and Jamie Fluke take the battle on the bricks.
Brilliant drive from both of the Apex Racing team cars to 98 despite the drama, crossing the line in that second spot. Again, hanging on to the championship lead. They've looked so strong. SimRC with an extra bonus lap to do. They will realistically have the victory already confirmed because Apex Racing team have crossed the line, which means that they are doing an extra lap comparatively to the rest of the touring car field. So they get to cruise. It is the victory lap for SimRC. For everyone else, they're just crossing the line, and we'll see those final few laps. Go on, Barney. You wave that flag.
No, sorry. Barney holds nothing to Aaron Likings, the usual resident flagman during the month of May, who is part usually of our iRacing Indianapolis 500 coverage. Unfortunately, with his duties in the NTT IndyCar Series, he's now got to be standing up there all day.
He really
flagging.
needs it, though, those swings.
He does. Look at him going for them. These are committed efforts. We've still got a handful of cars to come across the line. Gambles on tires, Lewis. We've seen this before in the BMW Sim GT Cup, the two of us. I don't think we've seen it in a race of this caliber in private endurance racing before.
No, not to this kind of level. It's been absolutely crazy. Here comes SimRC then out of the final corner.
It was victories for the Bumblebee in round one, and while round two did not go their way, a wave of the hand to the camera for Kieran Harrison. It is 2 victories this Sunday for SimRC as Harrison and Gunes cross the line to regain control of the championship. A sigh of relief. Now just 2 hours and 40 minutes left to survive in the battle against Roman Grosjean Esports and against the Apex Racing team. What a race it was. Caution free once again for this battle on the bricks. Burning it down, it will be Apex once again, joined by SimRC in their Hyundai Elantra. What a day it is again. Deja vu going back to round one. And let's run you down then through your race results here in round 3 of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. As always, unofficial race results, but there's nothing unofficial about the margin of victory. 10 seconds clear. Johan Harth walks his way into the victory lane. Alejandro Sanchez brings the 98 across the line in second, while Reina Talvar will have to report to the steward's office in that battle for third. Contact was made that pushed Luis Naja down to fourth. We'll see what happens there. Bram Van Putten, great drive for Team 75 to work their way forward into the top 5, while Williams Esports Razor do have a 5-second penalty to be added. However, they will finish in 7th behind the Altus Esports Lamborghini. And Carlos Fenalosa works his way forward in the closing stages. Not sure what happened to Patrick Holtzman. Maybe some struggles with tires for him as well. He'll finish down in 8th in front of Mati Sipula and Vlad Kimichev rounding out the top 10. Whilst the Pure Sims number 16 recovers from its incident to finish in 11th. Tumas Tattler and the Ferrari dropping to 12th through the course of the race, with Luca Kita for the Mercedes-AMG Urano 13th. Sean Campbell's going to be slightly frustrated with his final stint in the way that he was not allowed to push by the tires underneath him. 14th for him in front of CrowdStrike, BMW BS Competition, Dory Sports and Maniti, all those cars left on the lead lap. Then you got Luke Bennett and Yannick Lapchan, 19th and 20th. With those respective cars, Race Clutch, Arnage, and Carbon, all 1 lap down, along with Triton, 2 laps down at the end of the day. Brabham endured to finish this one 10 laps adrift, while 2 retirements, it's Aspar and MSI that do not make the end of this race. Lewis, talk us through the touring cars.
Yeah, SimRC taking a second victory. Kieran Harrison on his return to the championship, taking victory in that 176. The 199 just behind them. Gal Valero did a fantastic job to bring that one across the line, of course. His teammate Nicole Foggy doing everything in the early stages to bring them into contention for this race, but they finished a lap down on the race leader, just courtesy of where Kieran Harrison was. Ross McFarlane, the Pure Sims Esports car, round out the podium with R8G in 4th and 5th, but issues for them for the 108 earlier on. Valentin Manton, of course, came into this as the championship leader, drops down in that championship order, and it's going to be a tight fight for them running towards that final checkered flag at Daytona. Arnage competition in 6th edition with CrowdStrike having early issues early on. Semper Racing and Mirror Esports struggles in qualifying, but decent pace in the race with 9th spot. Full Send Racing round out the top 10 as we race our way through the order. The final 4 being Core Sim Racing, the second of the full send racing cars in the 185. Impulse, who started the race with drama at the first corner and with a penalty, and then the Honda Racing Team HBD car finishing the order, bringing it to that checkered flag in 14th.
Got all 14 of those touring cars across the line. Great slow-mo of the burnouts, and Apex not just 1 and 2 in GTD, but of course second in touring car as well. What a day it is, and they will continue their celebrations, and what a week it has been. Victorious in the Esports Racing League in terms of their full cup momentum and what it means for them moving forward, and some good runs in the British Formula 4 Championship on Friday. Now once more continuing the 100% record of victories in GTD here in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Let's then do our post-race interview. Jamie Fluke and Johan Hart already chatting amongst themselves as we drag them into the RaceSpot TV commentary booth. And Johan, will start with you at the end of the race. What was going through your mind as you started to work your way past your teammate with that damage?
Yeah, well, didn't really know he had damage until I started approaching him. Jamie told me when I was 4 or 5 seconds back. Oh, by the way, Sanchez got squeezed into the wall by a TC. Yeah. But touring car, yeah, exactly. So yeah, got squeezed into the wall, and yeah, from there it was just all about making sure we would take care of the tires and pretty much bring it home. The gap was pretty big behind. We knew we had the strategy on point, so yeah.
In terms of your experience with this track and the multi-class racing as well, Johan, you have plenty of experience going the other way around the oval. What was it like trying to carve your way through the touring cars? It must have felt a little bit like pod racing at times.
It was interesting to say the least. Pretty hard in some corners, especially the chicane in the middle. It was really awkward to catch cars in this section of the track. But yeah, I guess being used to catching traffic rather than driving GTs in endurance races, that's helping me a bit. I'm getting the timings right a tiny bit more than the other guys, so yeah, that's definitely helping.
So we'll go from Johan Hart. I'm not sure if Jamie Fluke is sitting next to him, but at the very least they're sitting
he's behind.
In the same kind of area. Jamie, I mean, you started this race off. What was that first pass through traffic for you? Because at the front it wasn't too bad. You and the 98 obviously tried to keep it single file and not let BS Turner follow you through, but man, oh man, I don't know if you knew how crazy it was behind you.
Yeah, like I suffered quite a bit. Every time that we passed through the touring cars, I kept losing heaps of time to Kev up ahead, and anything that I built up to Phil behind was eradicated immediately. Any time that I got stuck behind one of them through any of the chicanes, I just seem to lose so much time with it. I don't have the same experience that Johan or Kev, for that matter, does with dealing with slower class traffic. Normally I'm actually in the slower class. That tends to be where I'm a little bit stronger, so I can't imagine how rough it was further back, but up front, even for myself, it wasn't plain sailing, shall we say.
So the important question now is, as Apex continues the 100% streak of victories, when do you get the Indianapolis track map behind you?
When I can find a version of it that's up to date and modern.
Brandon Trainor's got you covered. Send him a message. He will get you right. See, we'll get you sorted by the next week.
Excellent. Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
King of the Bricks will get them sorted, that's for sure. But it is the Battle of the Bricks winners, Johan Hart and Jamie Fluke, victorious and keeping the 100% streak alive. But 2 of 3 now in touring cars for SimRC, and Lewis McLeod is ready to chat with our winners.
Yeah, speaking of 100% records, because he missed round 2 of the championship, Kieran Harrison, who will be alongside us, does keep his own record when it comes to race victories after the first one of the season, and now here as well, returning to the championship. What a return it was. I mean, pretty dramatic race out there. Obviously, just how it was, but it almost seemed to be pretty calm over the final few laps.
Yeah, it was the easiest part of the race. We had a reasonable gap at the end, like through well, at least my first and the middle stint of the race, we weren't really sure what the strategies were doing. It seemed like we thought we had a fuel advantage compared to RAG, but they were definitely fast in that stint, so we weren't quite sure. But yeah, we seemed to have the pace in the end. So yeah, nice way to come back and have another win. I think we take the...
What are the difficulties of racing? When there's we've asked it kind of a few times, but especially on these kind of circuits where it is a bit more open, where the straight line speed differential almost looks like it is greater between the touring cars and the GTDs. What kind of difficulties does that entail with all of them flying through traffic?
I think particularly when you get things like the chicane leading onto the back straight, you can't really go side by side through there, but because it would cost the GT3s so much to slow down to our speed before the back straight, you get some of them trying it anyway. I mean, it actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting today, to be honest. It was certainly, from Road Atlanta, the last race I did, the traffic was a lot more difficult to deal with there. But I think maybe just because we had two big straights on this track, and it's really wide as well. Yeah, the traffic was okay. I expected the worst, but it wasn't too bad.
Well, cheers to Kieran Harrison. We'll head straight over to his teammate, Corentin Guinness, also alongside. Now, we did speak to you just after, or just before, rather, the final proper stints of those races. We've already asked you about how things are traffic-wise. I'll ask you just a single question here about what are we going to expect in that season finale? Just one more race, a tight battle between yourselves and R8G in the championship. What are we kind of expecting at Daytona? Are you expecting the Hondas to be quite strong? Are you expecting yourselves and the Hyundais to be quite strong? What are we looking there?
I don't know. I think the fuel strategy will be the key because the draft is just insane with that this year. So it's gonna be about fuel management, I guess. Then we will see. I think the tire strategy will be quite easy. We won't have to change tires. Yeah, I guess fuel traffic will be the key as well. Some tricky corners like the bus stop will be as well important to stay alive there. But yeah, I think fuel, and then yeah, we will see. I think we gain quite a lot of points, so we will try to stay alive. It's the most important, and yeah, try to get some great points on the next one.
Confidence is high though?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we know what we're doing with these cars, I guess. So yeah, I think we got this. If we don't make mistakes like we've done on the previous at the Laguna Seca, we should be fine.
Wow. Congratulations to SimRC. We'll hopefully catch up with them in a couple of weeks' time that season finale. But great stuff from Corentin Guinness and Kieran Harrison. Go and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Straight back over to Arjuna then. I mean, what a round it was.
2 wins out of 3 for SimRC and looking very, very good in that Hyundai, I would say. I mean, Lewis, another great round and another round where we went caution-free.
Yeah, which, to be fair, I said it before coming into it. I'm not clairvoyant, but I was expecting it to be a round where we weren't expecting a safety car. It wasn't really on the cards. It's a nice open circuit. I don't particularly expect one next round in Daytona as well. I know some people will be like, oh, but go on. But again, we only throw them when we need them, and we certainly needed them back at Laguna Seca, and we definitely didn't today.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Next time out, the season finale. It's a fast, furious, and short championship. Just 4 rounds in length, and November 20th, once again at 2 p.m. Eastern, we will go racing from the World Center of Racing, not just to finish off our 2022 season, but of course, we'll get ready, Lewis, for 2023 and the start of that GTP evolution. We mentioned it briefly during the race, but of course, much excitement as iRacing has already confirmed in partnership with Dallara and BMW. The BMW LMDH car will be arriving to iRacing before it hits the track in the real world.
Can't wait for it. I will be driving it almost immediately to see how bad I am still at the world of sim racing, but always a joyous time when we really see the fruits of the labour between BMW really pushing the sim racing side of things and being able to see that and being able to have an advantage from it as a sim racing, being able to jump in even before we properly see it out in real world.
We entered today halfway through the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, and we leave today with just 2 hours and 40 minutes left to go. 2 weeks from today, join us for the season finale. But for the entire team at iRacing, for everyone at IMSA, and for everyone that works on this series at VCO and RaceSpot TV, for Hugo Luis, Tyler Maxson, for the Pit Road Runners, Ewan O'Leary, Lorenzo Bonder, and Lewis McLeod alongside myself, Arjuna Kengi-Party. Thank you so much for joining us for this preview of the Battle on the Bricks. Congratulations go to the Apex Racing team and to SimRC, but we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time to see if those 2 teams will walk away as champions in the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship powered by VCO.